Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode number 255 of Heavy Metallurgy. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Marty. It's good to see you all. Hope you're doing well. Alan, how are you?
I'm doing okay. It's been another sort of long and wacky week, but we're back here on another Friday night, which is always fun. It's a great way to unwind at the end of the week. I think all three of us are in a slightly goofy mood based on our conversations backstage. So,
yeah.
And we've got a fun topic and a very fun guest. So, yeah, looking forward to hanging out with folks. Hello to everybody in the chat. It's nice to see a lot of folks filing in. Hope you all have had a good week. Yeah, and are ready for what will probably be one of our less serious episodes, but hopefully plenty entertaining.
Absolutely. And the dreadful one, Rick, is back after a long hiatus.
Hey.
How are you doing, my friend?
Always good to be back. You guys are always a lot of fun. Friday nights are, I think it's where it's at. I think a good way to kind of start the weekend. So, as you guys know, I had a birthday month. So that means existentialism time.
Happy birthday.
So a lot to think about. I got my Hazy Life Coach IPA, Figure Out Life.
Does it work?
Through the help of ABV.
Did you figure it out?
I might need another 40-something years. I'll get there eventually. It's just it's a long road. But in the meantime, I got all these records and CDs to kind of help ease things and coast through my day and life. I'm sure this for you guys.
Yes, this right here. We should mention, rest in peace, Ross the Boss. Diagnosed with ALS, and he went pretty quick. That is, I've had, some of my wife's family has gone through the ALS thing, and I tell you what,
it sucks.
That is fucking grim. So our condolences to the Ross the Boss family and friends, and thanks for the amazing run of albums with Man of War. Absolute warrior of the world for sure. So cheers to Ross the Boss. It's iced tea, but still.
The loin master, loincloth master. It's just, it's we're here to talk about tropes, so bring it up.
Yeah. Well, we might as well just get into this, Rick. Rick is responsible for today's topic. We'll just throw that out there. So,
well, first of all, I think we were ready to think about what topic or whatever, and one idea hit, and I was a little disappointed that we're not going to do the all 4,000 releases of the non-slaughter discography. I was so ready.
He's been cramming for that. I asked him on Wednesday, and he said, let's do the entire non-slaughter ranking. I'm like, dude, perfect. But this got thrown in instead.
Get it all done under 3 hours.
We could do it. Yeah.
Maybe another time.
87% of it is 7-inch anyway, so it doesn't take long to listen to that.
89 releases, 3 hours later. I played everything twice.
Right.
I think that kind of what you guys were saying, we were talking backstage, and it's just like, when we were in school back in our day, a little younger than you guys, but but I remember a time where being an actual metalhead meant that you sat at a different lunch table. You were kind of a bit of a, you were not with that in group. You were not
small circle of friends that often got spit on by the other ones. Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah.
And then I noticed, like, a little over 50 years of heavy metal, whatever, how long it's been around. It's kind of become more and more ingrained, with our culture. It's like, you can go to some places and start seeing, like, metal like shirts in the clearance rack at the big box stores, and it's just like starting to kind of inch its way. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that over time it's become very recognizable. It's not, besides just the music, it's a lot of the tropes attached to the music, and when people look at something, like you're at a store, you can tell it's a metal album in some way, shape, or form. And I think with the assistance of but I think tonight we might break it down with different genres and kind of get a little bit more, I guess, specific with maybe what some things might indicate that. But at the same time, and anybody who knows me, I don't like to take everything too seriously. I think that's part of the fun with metal is it's there are times when you can be serious with it, but then there are times where you really can have a lot of fun with this. I loved it as a kid, drawing the skulls on the wall, doing the bootleg t-shirts, with my fake little screen printing operation back in the day. And there was something about it that you couldn't get through other forms of music. I think metal has its own kind of extreme that brought out a lot of the things that angst, that a lot of us were experiencing at the time. I wonder about the kids today who are just getting into it and kind of what is making them gravitate towards it. Is it Stranger Things? Is it?
My kid was direct contact with me.
See,
no escaping it around here.
Which is not everybody's kind of direct path, right?
Yeah.
Like, and
it's always a friend of a friend, and or brother or siblings records, or the stories are all fairly common, it seems. But yeah,
it's a fork in the road. Like you'll start with probably the big mainstream band, and then slowly you just kind of work your way into other things and branch off to your own kind of interests. And there's just so much variety out there now that there's a little bit of something for everybody, in some way, shape, or form. And I think that there's a lot of assistance and a lot of cues that people can pick up on to kind of just find their way on what it is. But at the end of the day, just have fun with it. We're getting close to April Fools coming up. Thought this would have been a cool thing to kind of tie in and just have a little bit of a laughs tonight or whatever. Again, I don't know what your polls are, but I just word of warning everybody. I have a bunch of records laid out on the floor here, so you might be seeing me get up and down depending how the conversation goes.
Alan, how did you take this topic?
Yeah, my take on it was that there are a lot of things that become ingrained in heavy metal over time, and some of them we don't necessarily notice how common they become until they've become extremely common. It's like, wait, where'd that come from? Or why did that become so popular? It doesn't have to be something really weird or silly or anything, but it's just like, you stop and think, it's just like, why was this a theme that got developed and became part of heavy metal culture? So yeah, I tried to pull examples of that. Some of them are, fashion trends. Some of them are trends with album covers or band names. We'll see. I promise there will be no rants about the words liminal, goat, or void. At least from my corner of the screen tonight. Can't speak for these other guys, but things like that. You just kind of when you stop and think about it, you realize it's like, wow, there really are a lot of that particular thing in heavy metal. And I'm not making a case for all of these being good or bad. These really aren't rant-tastic things I've pulled. It's more just like, this is odd, but I kind of like it, or this is odd and I just don't get it. So we'll see. Marty and I have compared notes a bit, and I think we're kind of on a similar page. But Marty, what was your take as you pulled things?
Yeah, this was a little more difficult topic. I thought, this will be easy, but can't just talk about high tops and ripped Levi's jeans and stuff like that. But I kind of thought about it, comparing metal to, it's something we don't think about because we're in the culture, essentially. We all wear the uniform. I've been wearing basically the exact same uniform since junior high. I haven't changed a bit. Other than
skin tight leotard and assless chaps.
Yeah, it's a little chafing, and my hairy ass sticks to some furniture, but it's you get on, if you're true, your steel is true, you forge on. But there's things that happen in metal or just a part of metal that we just, it's just part of it. We accept it and move on. And I tried to think about the music world at large compared to our little subculture of the music scene. There's some things that metal does that is just commonplace within metal. It's part of the culture that is probably seen as really weird or in the metal world, in the world outside of it. So I don't know. I've got everything from fashion to just things that metal does as part of the culture, and some things that are not good and some things that are cool. I don't know. I figured it'll be a wide open conversation and hopefully a fun topic. But without further ado, Rick, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this started with bands. Like I was trying to kind of explain backstage, was that metal began before it was even labeled, and there were bands coming up that were already showing signs, and the chrome and the motorcycle culture was already coming into play, and the term, the heavy came in before the metal, and it slowly started to kind of intertwine. So that was that side of it. And then there was also the more darker side, that's with the Satanic theme started coming in, and the whole, I got this book here, Half a Century of Witchcraft. And it is from that Coven band, which were not metal, but were already showing that shock rock kind of imagery at the time that people were not, ready for the general public. So it was still kind of taboo to talk about it, and the other side of the world, Sabbath was already kind of making their play. And so you had James Dawson and company, and a lot of it I think was happening in Europe. But I think the first thing I'm going to show as kind of an example is today is March 27th, 2026. And for a new album drop that came on my doorstep today, it kind of showing that these things are still very much in play, still very much relevant. And you take a band like Hellripper, Coronac, which again, it's already getting really good reviews.
Yep.
Not surprisingly, the last one was pretty good, but this has the same tropes that we see time and time again. And the question is, are we getting tired of this? Do we move on? What's the next thing? What is the next thing that we do that we could still kind of consider it metal? But I think going back to the tried and true, it's something that we all kind of push. I mean, it all begins with Hell Ripper. I mean, in itself kind of tells you there. You got this big giant goat kind of going on the cover. I don't know what he's looking at. It's just kind of it's got this kind of blank stare. But over time, we get some artists that kind of make way and define some of the visuals. Adam Burke artwork yet again. But, would I call this funny? No. But it's very well done. But this is a good example where if this was not good music, it was not well done, this would come off as extremely just cliche, very, very typical, and just very run-of-the-mill, not breaking any new ground. But it takes a real effort to pull something like this where it's very familiar, but it's still very, very good. It kind of just tells you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time to do this. Good music is good music.
All right. Good start. Alan.
Just a second here. Yeah, just chatting with folks in the chat. Cheers to Ailstorm. I'm trying to break out a little bit of my Spanish. Very sorry if I'm butchering some things as chatting with you, but cheers for joining us. Glad you're in the chat. Let's see. One of the first things I thought of with this is the very standard metal uniform we were talking about, the sort of chains and leathers and studs look. And that, of course, is famously linked to Judas Priest. But it wasn't always Judas Priest's look. If you go back far enough, that uniform didn't exist in heavy metal. It's weird to think about. There was a time that predates the leather look. And you can see this transition very markedly in Priest's catalog. If you look at like Stained Class, obviously a great album, but you check out the photos from that era. This is Judas Priest circa Stained Class. They look like, all the, bastard children that were left over after Deep Purple toured the United States a decade earlier or something.
Looks like they got a hold of a couple of guys from a new wave band too.
Yeah, I mean, this is a sad lot of 70s wannabe Eagles rockers or something. And then you fast forward exactly one album, which is probably like 18 months later, because bands cranked out the albums back in the 70s. You get to Hellbent for Leather, and well, here you go. You got leather. It's you've got Halford with the iconic hat, Jack. I mean, then they've got this completely new, different look, and it rapidly becomes the de facto thing in heavy metal. Both Rob and KK have talked about this in their autobiographies in recent years, how the band wanted a more unifying appearance on stage. They kind of understood that they looked very thrown together, and they started to feel that maybe that was holding them back to some extent. They were doing better and better with each album. And this was an era in the 70s where bands were given some time to grow and mature. So, the record company's like, yeah, okay, you're growing, we're moving more units with every album. But the band wanted to do something to kind of take that next step forward. They figured having a tighter visual presentation would work. And there are conflicting reports. Both Rob and KK have kind of taken credit for being the ones to discover the leather look, which apparently they all felt a little awkward about trying. It of course has links to other subcultures outside of metal, and there was no link to it in metal at all. So there were concerns about how's this going to go over. Don't know. Maybe, I don't know, but they liked it. They thought it gave a good band.
The leather had more staying power than bell bottoms,
the bell bottoms had to die sooner or later, so why not?
Bell bottoms just don't look as good assless.
I'm trying to picture it, and now I'm trying to stop picturing it. But yeah, bottom line is they all got fitted, got their suits, and broke them out. And within just a few years, by the time you get into the early 80s, denim and leather were already the de facto go-to for heavy metal fans all over the place. So it obviously was a good choice. It worked out really well. You don't really stop and think about it, but that kind of outfit in most circles would be extremely strange. And I've always figured it couldn't have been the most comfortable thing to wear on stage when touring, that you're either in small, very hot, cramped bar kind of settings, or you're on bigger stages with tons of lighting focused on you. Got to be hotter than hell performing in that kind of stuff. So it's interesting that they went for it, but they stuck with it, and we ended up with just a very unusual but very identifiable fashion statement as heavy metal really started to take off in the late 70s and early 80s.
The biker culture was already around, so that was the cues that they already had to kind of pick up from. And at the same time,
there were they're right. There were other subcultures that were outside the mainstream that did lean into the leather thing too. So they kind of they adopted it, picked it up, and ran with it.
I'm just thinking of like the insurance waivers, like they got assigned every time Rob was to ride that bike on stage. It's just like
I mean, that was definitely a thing for sure, and didn't work in some places. Right before the bike actually was an issue with Halford right before he quit Priest in the early 90s, that he had to ride it, on stage, and if everything hadn't been set up correctly, they had way too much dry ice smoke machine stuff going on. And when he was riding it up the ramp, some of the scaffolding bars were too low, and he basically just did the cartoon thing of riding smack into the bar, knocked him off the bike, knocked him out cold. And he cites that as just one of the breaking points where it's just like, what the fuck am I doing? This is bullshit. It was kind of at the end of a very long touring cycle, and then they did this extra tour.
Yeah,
that the band was already kind of wiped out, and then this kind of thing was happening. And he's like, I admit, I just kind of lost it. He's just like, I'm just fed up with this stuff, and we've been doing it this long, we can't even get that part right. Screw this. And it ended up resulting in him being out of priest, or was part of the process of him deciding to, not be in priest for a decade or more.
Thanks, Ian, for the super chat. Appreciate you, man.
Well,
Thank you, Ian.
It's like when you go to the beach and there's too many, you can't do this, you can't do that signs. You start to kind of, it entrenches into the fun. And nothing, that's the way when you go to a show and it's just too many damn protocols you got to follow. You're like,
why can't my dog shit on the beach? Come on. Yeah.
See.
All right. Here we go. Oh. Excuse me. Let me get my little thing here. My little lunchbox.
What you got in the lunchbox?
Cheers,
Mike. Thank you for the super chat.
Thanks, Mike.
For those who don't know, Mike does a ton of work helping us out with the Discord channel. Can't thank him enough for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we're going to talk about
what's in the box.
We're going to talk about mascots.
oh yeah.
Wait. Hold that closer to the camera. You're going to show that version of the self-titled Iron Maiden album?
I didn't want to dig out the album, so I was.
You're going to show
easy.
that version of the cover art of the first Iron Maiden album.
Get with the modern times, Alan. Get with the modern times. This is modern Eddie here.
Oh, Marty.
Mister.
Look, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed now.
I got the freaking lunchbox. Is that okay?
I don't know what version of the art is on that. Does that have Eddie holding up like a Scooby-Doo puppet? Because they had to pay Derek Riggs fewer royalties?
He should have. He should have one.
I gotta say,
someone's going to manufacture.
A segue into this is coming off the leather conversation is Diano pulled the leather thing pretty well.
Yeah.
In the beginning for the Maiden early days.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't even the original vocalist. Like he came on, but he was on those original albums. But can you imagine Dickinson in leather and just trying to pull that off? I'm trying to put a visual on that. It just doesn't work.
He did during the if you look at they kind of rocked the leather look on the Fear of the Dark, or was it
they had the pictures of them on the bike.
They had their leather moment too.
Couldn't fit into those stripy pants anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
He didn't have the punky approach, that
right.
Diano did. But the launch of the mascot, it's like they kicked that off, like for the everybody else just kind of took the lead, once Maiden came in the picture. But that's a good segue.
But the mascot thing, kind of a anomaly when it comes to you don't see like the Mad Butcher on a Fleetwood Mac album, or or maybe Sound Chaser on a Machine Gun Kelly album, and then you got bands that just, Maiden set the precedent. And then bands like, you got Halloween, you got Fang Face there.
Mm-hmm.
Halloween went from that to the 7 Key guy. And you also got the Pumpkin guy. They had multiple mascots they went with. Kai ran with Fang Face with Gamma Ray. It's just kind of a unique marketing ploy. One band, Maiden, they had an amazing artist with Derek Riggs who created the Eddie the Ed. And, and who can forget Tior? He wouldn't fit in the lunchbox because his head was too big. I don't know. I know Alan loves this mascot, but I'm still on the fence on this guy here. But it's like, you're not seeing this on a Taylor Swift album. Except if there would, there'd be a bow in his hair. I'll say that.
I don't know. You put a whole bunch of lipstick on Tior and you ain't got much of a difference left between the two. She's just not an attractive woman. I'm sorry.
No. But it's like, I got to look at metal and they kind of got it right with, I'm going to also show the backside of the album cover thing on my next turnaround here, but there's a lot like country music. It's just the performer on the cover standing there, leaning up against a barn or an old truck, or, the rap guys. It's just, the rap guys on the cover, typically. A generalization, of course. Metal is more artwork driven, more visually driven. And you give something like a mascot, Derek Riggs and Iron Maiden had it completely right from the start. They could put that shit on t-shirts. They could put their character in any sort of environment, and they would even do special designs for the countries they were going to, Eddie in a Brazilian soccer stadium, all these little special things. It's brilliant marketing. And, Fleetwood Mac just have a couple of the members doing, mystical dances on the cover of Rumors. It's just a more visual culture. And I think early on more focused on branding, and found out that the branding could drive your merchandise line and actually be quite successful. Because, look at what we're all wearing. I'm sure everybody in the chat tonight is wearing a metal shirt. It's our culture. It's our armor,
And it's usually black.
It's usually black because I have a couple white metal shirts, but they have ketchup stains on them, and I didn't even eat ketchup. It's just one of those things. It just mystically happens. Or chili. I haven't had chili, and I've got chili stain on my shirt. I don't know.
The true iconoclasts go more for a yellow look. I'm just saying.
Right.
Black's fine for the rest of you.
Absolutely. So there you go. There's my first step into the culture of metal, is the beloved mascot.
No, that's a great pick, and you're absolutely right. It's not something that you really. I'm not aware of it being a thing in other genres.
Maybe rap. Insane Clown Posse has got a thing,
Hey, do they have I don't. In all seriousness, I don't know them well enough. Do they have an actual mascot, or do they just have costume/uniforms that they go with?
Well, they got the hatchet guy. All the people get the tattoo of the hatchet guy, and then on the covers, don't they have like a clown a reoccurring clown? I don't know. I don't know.
If you have seen 2 ICP albums, you have seen 2 more than I have. So I don't know.
Aren't they from Michigan?
Aaron, you're the ICP expert.
They actually are.
Yeah, I should know because they're from Michigan. But there's a lot of stuff that comes from Michigan that sucks, like Ted Nugent and Kid Rock. So we can't always be perfect. Can't be perfect.
We did.
I thought you want to say like Detroit, but I see you.
No. Want to get us canceled, a half hour into the episode. All right, Rick. I state my claim on the mascot. So
the thing. Okay. Like going back to that riot, right? Like at the time, you didn't have the internet, so you had to figure out a way to get people's attention, and you couldn't just blind listen to a lot of this stuff while you were at the store. Like if you look into the shop and you see that thing looking at you, you're gonna be curious,
or avoid it like the plague, like I did for decades.
It's a very WTF thing, but it's just it has compelled some people to check it out, because who would be this ridiculous? Like this be this bold, and it ended up being a great album. At the end of the day, and at the same time, while this was going on, then when you had Iron Maiden, Barbie was already out. She had more occupations than anybody. But Eddie had just about every occupation. I think he was trying to outdo Barbie. Riding West of the City. Look at this.
Now that you put it that way, I don't want Iron Maiden records anymore.
They kicked off the whole Iron trend. Like, how many Iron bands are out there? It's like they just kept pumping out artwork, just over time. It's just they trying to just keep up with everything. That's
a cool 12-inch, by the way. Very cool.
Yeah, it's got the live tracks and whatnot. I don't see it too much in the wild, but they were one of those bands where they understood how important the visual was, at the same time. And like you're right, the mascot thing was huge. Them, Motorhead, were another big one.
Oh yeah, Snaggletooth. Yeah.
Even though they never call themselves a metal band, but
they're adjacent for sure.
Yeah. But I do have this because you mentioned Michigan, and so let's go back to like '86. So you might know this one. So this is an EP from '86, and there's no castles, as far as I know, in Michigan or anything medieval. But it didn't stop medieval from putting this out, and this thing is great.
Oh, see, my buddy bought that when it came out on cassette, and I remember listening to it and not liking it back then. Now I might like it, but it's been decades since I've heard that.
This is this is kind of like Venom meets Morbid Tales.
Where are they from? I'll have to look this up.
Kalamazoo.
Oh, really? Okay.
You know,
About 3 hours south of me. Yep.
you know, it's like, well, okay. So by 86, He-Man was on the air, right? Like, so, you know, they got the Skeletor kind of thing kind of happening here. You know, when you think of like the trope of, you know, metal, like the medieval was kind of entrenched in the fantasy world, and, you know, and He-Man took the reins of that. And, you know, I was already, you know, at the school lunch table playing with the Man-at-Arms action figures and whatnot. And everybody in the universe had a 6-pack for some reason. Ross the Boss, you know, everybody had this the loincloth and the whole deal, you know. And when you think of, if you're trying to do actual history and look at the way the medieval times were like, nobody was getting this buff. Like, protein was very hard to come by. Most peasants were eating grain, trying to get as much calories as they can to get to this point. Is just, you know, but I found it very, very amusing. They did put out one more full length after this, and it was one of those bands that just, for some reason or another, never really got the big record deal, never really, you know, it's just, they had a sound that wasn't trending to where everything was going, you know, during this time. So they were kind of meant to stay in the underground, you know, for what it is. But if you see it around, it's a cool listen. I would definitely revisit this, Marty. It's definitely
You
cool.
partied on that record. Holy shit. That thing has seen some
Yeah,
things.
it was a used pickup, but the record's in good shape. But yeah.
All right. Alan.
Cheers, Beer Mantis. Good to see you. All right, I'll kind of build off of that because, yeah, Rick's right. There's a lot of medieval imagery in heavy metal, especially in the 80s. It was a very common go-to theme. Part of that was swords. You have so many bands, you know, holding swords, so many, you know, album covers with swords. The example I picked is, you know, the second Virgin Steel album. You know, great big sword, and they use this same sword in lots of photo shoots over the years. But you see the same kind of stuff on early Manowar, you know, photo shoots and all kinds of other bands. And on one hand, it kind of fits with something that happened in a bigger cultural sense around that time. There was a big push of fantasy movies and stories in the early 80s. And this kind of even tracked back into the late 70s. That, you know, Star Wars, you know, of course, started, you know, a big science fantasy explosion. Not science fiction, but science fantasy, you know, doing the whole space opera kind of thing. And of course, all kinds of other studios, writers, producers wanted to pick up that ball and run with it and try to, you know, ride the coattails of the success of Star Wars. And one direction that got picked up on that was pretty successful was the more medieval kind of fantasy. The big one from that era was the Conan movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And in the wake of that, you started having, you know, more and more of these kind of, you know, medieval fantasy movies come out. Some, you know, were kind of fun. Some were very low budget. I was always partial to Willow myself. Just, you know, not claiming it's the best movie ever, but it was fun.
Take a shot every time he says Mad Mardigan, and you will be hammered in the first 32 minutes.
Yep.
Val Kilmer, by the way.
And then you ended up with some, you know, that, you know, started meshing the two, like Krull, where they had this, you know, it was like a medieval world, and they get invaded by like laser shooting robots called Slayers. Yep. And somehow the laser shooting robots get, you know, beat up by a bunch of, you know, cyclopses and unicorns and stuff. I'm not saying that one worked well at all, but there was this, you know, sort of fascination for a period with all this fantasy stuff in the early 80s. So I guess in that sense, it makes sense that heavy metal picked up on some of that. The sword thing in particular, though, when I stop and think about it, it is a little odd. It's like, what's the obsession with medieval weaponry for the early 1980s? I mean, nobody's fighting with swords for over 100 years by that point. Why weren't these bands like, you know, packing guns? If you're like trying to show off, like, you know, hey, we've got weaponry, we're warriors and stuff. Why weren't they holding like, M16s or 9mm or stuff like that? Because you don't necessarily see a ton of guns on metal covers. They are there. So, and some bands like Sodom, of course, lean into that kind of thing a lot. But
unless it's like literal modern war metal or something,
Yes, again, more recently, yes, some genres, have picked up on that more. But when you're going through like classic 80s metal stuff, guns are not all that common compared relative to things like swords. It's like
I have a theory. I have a theory if you want a pseudo possibility.
Sure. I was going to say is it's kind of weird because it makes me think of like, the scene from Indiana Jones with the dude, playing with his sword, and he just watches him for a minute. It's like, boom.
Yeah.
Who's fighting with a sword in the 1980s? Indiana Jones makes it very clear this doesn't work. But what is your theory for this, Marty?
The Conan the Barbarian movies.
Oh, yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. I think those fantasy movies, it just carried over into that and seemed cool.
Yep. I mean, what's more metal than a Conan movie, really? Arnold and doing all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And yeah, man, I mean, and some bands did have success, writing that kind of imagery. Manowar being a prime example, but others too. But yeah, I mean, even to this day, you have lots of metal bands that love posing with swords and axes and all this stuff, which is fine. It works as a visual. I've got no problem with it. It is just funny when you stop and think about it. It's just like, dude, you could be posing with like an Uzi, and all these sword wielding motherfuckers aren't going to get within 50 feet of you before they're dead, but you're still posing with the sword. So it's definitely not, the most up-to-date statement of, here's my badass weaponry. It's more like, here's the thing that probably belongs on Antique Roadshow instead. So swords and metal, they go together. They've gone together for a long time, but they are sort of a weird choice of prop in terms of choice of personal weaponry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's my
Christopher. Yeah, Dio did kind of bring the sword and sorcery thing into metal.
Dio leaned into that quite. Yep. In the even in the 70s, that was becoming a thing. And we'll talk about that one maybe next round. But yes, there are deeper connections for that going even further back. But Marty, what's your pull for this round?
Well, I talked about mascots on album covers, and metal being a very visual element. Back in the day, before the internet, your album had to stand out amongst all the hundreds of others in the record store. So, a very good album cover would be a excellent marketing idea and get a leg up on the other competition sitting in the bins under your same letter. But bad album covers are a universal thing. They happen all over in any genre all the time, but metal in particular can really lay on the stink, and it was not hard pulling stuff for this. So this is some of these are like bigger labels with probably a budget. These bands had a budget behind them, but let's just start off with this one, Samael's Passage. Yep. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of, granted, there's no accounting for taste. And I think a lot of artists, they put so much time and effort into their music. When it gets down time to be released, like, oh shit, we need to come up with an album cover. It always feels like the last minute thing. And you get Tormentor's Recipe Ferrum. Yep. There wasn't a lot of forethought on that one. Swordmaster's Moribund Transgoria. Not good.
Ooh, not good at all.
Extreme Aggression, Creator. I mean, obviously, this wasn't the intended cover, and granted, I didn't like the intended cover either. I thought it was kind of a shitty album cover.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there isn't anything really other than if you're familiar with the band Sentence and you like them, you're going to pick it up. But this doesn't say Buy Me.
There's something I like about that cover, but it is a strange metal cover.
Is it the color? The red and gold type of, rich?
I think it's the color scheme does work well. But I think just the statue, it does, while it's obviously, on one hand, it's passive because obviously none of the animals can move, but it also depicts something that is very aggressive and vicious happening with the lions going after the lamb. But it's in that very static kind of thing. It's not like an artist rendition of an lamb actually getting ripped apart. It's locked in place. Somehow I like that weird juxtaposition. I don't know. I'm weird.
This one, I mean, just not good. Bad album, bad cover art.
I think Anne Rice likes that one.
Arcanum. Never known. The first few albums, just basically him on the cover. And then he started doing this very minimalist type of art. Hey, Scooby-Doo, is this the next villain on your cartoon? Yeah, it sure is. Get the gang together and solve that mystery.
And we're going to get away with it, too, if not for you darn metallurgists.
Meddling kids. This thing looks like it was removed from a 70s shag van, the side of it. The airbrush look to it. And then there's some bands that really struggle to get it right ever. And as much as I love this band, they were one of them. Anacrusis with Reason.
Oh, they never had a good cover.
Manic Impressions. Screams and Whispers. We're not batting 1,000 here. I've looked at buying some Anacrusis shirts, and I just really cannot warrant spending $30 for that shirt.
It's one of those rare cases where you ask the vendors.
Where's your number one band, Alan?
No, I love the band a lot, but it is a case where you kind of ask the vendors, like, do you have anything that just has the logo and nothing else?
Yeah. And then we get into some of the biggest bands on the planet. Metallica. Oh, but it doesn't stop there. They started off fair.
The music video had them literally holding the proofs. They were looking at them. They knew what they were getting.
Punch in the butthole. You got the Vagina album cover. You got semen mixed with blood on 2 different album covers.
So basically every Metallica album cover for over a decade was just pornographic.
Yeah, and I don't even own 72 seasons, so I'm not going to show you that. But like I said, there's no accounting for taste. And metal, I could have picked 1,000 albums with really stupid covers for this. But, in a culture built on being, very visual, you could do better. There's times in bands that do better. That's all I'm going to say here.
There's the thing where I always take into account like how big the band is, right? Like Metallica has no excuse. They're probably like the richest metal band in the world.
Their first 3 albums were decent covers.
They were already like ahead of the pack, and then it just lost the creative itch, I guess. And it's only going to get worse. Like with this AI thing in the picture, it's just going to be just more slop coming our way. Jumping on that example, and how important covers are. So I pulled 2 here, and one from a very relatively new band, or should I say recent band. And you all know Castle Rat, jumping on the swords and of the fantasy. Anybody who was itching to see like a unicorn tonight, there you go.
One thing that covers missing is a dolphin
right now.
Dolphin.
Jumping on the Conan and the Red Sonja kind of deal. Like, in modern times, we still haven't lost the appeal to this. This is still a seller, and they know what they were doing. Is it the most amazing imagery in the world? No, but what you're getting. This is something that sells what's in the contents of kind of what they're selling here. But then you got this, and which I think also came out last year, and this is from a fella who's from a very known band who would have the budget. Johan Lanquist came out with this, and the castle, and I guess this is something he's been wanting to do for a long time and kind of do his own thing. So he's not always tied to the Candlemass stuff, but I'm like, all right, I put some work into my own thing. I want people to know, like what Dickinson is another one of the guys. They're very inconsistent when he puts out his stuff. And I don't get why you don't put too much effort onto your own branding for your own stuff. So And I'm looking at this. He was not thinking curb appeal, at all. It's just kind of, you could have done something interesting with the castle, anything. But it's not even a logo. It's just kind of like this, I don't know, Garamond or whatever, thing this type of. I could have put this together in 5 minutes, literally, for him. And it just goes to show, like, it's not always the band doesn't have the budget. They're not a name that's out there. I think just on the name alone, probably sold a few of this. I mean, obviously I picked it up, but at the same time, there was no reason why it had to be like this. They could have had something with some sort of, because the content of the lyrics and everything else made some really cool concepts. There's so much you could have done and went with this, but he didn't. Yeah, this is on I Hate what is it? Records. So they do some cool stuff. So I don't know, no art direction, ran out of time or whatever it was, but again, these guys who done the fantasy and Doom and everything else, but Castle Rat went all the way. Why couldn't they?
All right, Alan.
It's working pretty well for Castle Rat. They've got a good amount of buzz, for sure. All right, yeah, let's follow up on that. The Dio comment, starting more of the whole sort of wizardry, sorcery thing, because that's another thing that's been a very big part of metal for a long time. The wizards. I mean, you can trace it probably all the way back into Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath territory. I picked one of their contemporaries for an early example. Uriah Heep's
good record.
Demons and Wizards.
Good record.
Yeah, very good one. This band did a lot of good stuff, especially early in their catalog. But this is the one everybody always talks about. And understandably, it's got a lot of their best known songs. You've got Easy Living was, I think, one of their relatively few hits in the US. I always got the sense this band didn't become as successful stateside, but Easy Living was a hit. It was the first song I ever heard by the band. Rainbow Demon is a song that most people know from the band. Venture Sword covered that in the early 2000s. So yeah, very iconic stuff. And yeah, very much starting to play into the, wizardry image. And that's been very consistent from, the central antagonist in Dio Rainbow's Stargazer. Yeah, is some kind of wizard-like figure trying to build this crazy tower to fly into the stars.
One of the best songs ever. God damn it.
Absolutely, for sure. But that whole wizard theme keeps popping up all over the heavy metal landscape. I didn't pull it out, but the Asbury record from the early 80s, Wizard on the cover, Crowhaven album that I've shown before is a underground favorite, has great wizard cover artwork, all the way up through just earlier this year, the Greyhawk album that came out a couple of weeks ago. What's kind of looming over the party in the background of the cover? Big wizard dude with magic light up eyes getting ready to cast some kind of spell. And again, nothing wrong with it at all. It kind of works. It kind of fits for metal. But it is interesting for a genre where a lot of the genre is rooted in more of this kind of blue collar, keeping it real type of vibe, that there's also a strong history of this escapism route of, Dungeons, Dragons, Swords, sorcery kind of imagery playing on not just the covers, but also in a lot of the songs. And we'll probably see more examples of that as we go on tonight. But yeah, wizards are everywhere in metal. You could say the same exact thing about witches in heavy metal. I decided to pass on that one tonight because personally I am so burned out on witches.
Golf clap.
Over to you, Marty.
Well, you want to talk about escapism, escaping reality. Drugs have always been a part of music. There's no denying that. But it's also, in the culture at large, it is seen as, used to be more so than now, obviously, second-class citizens, right? People that down on their luck or maybe untrustworthy type people, the drug culture. So, I mean, drugs have always been a part, once the 60s and 70s hit, and metal is not that different from that, but there are bands that their whole essentially their mascot is the drugs. So here you go. Sleep. Another one, Electric Wizard with Dope Throne. There are, Bongzilla. There's a whole culture of bands in the metal realm that uphold the virtues and wonderment of escapism and altering your perception of the world.
I believe that subgenre
drugs.
is now referred to as Arkham metal, if I understand.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Arkham and Logan metal as well.
The metal and Arkham snob subgenre. Cheers to Brian.
Yeah. This is a last minute idea to pull here. I mean, obviously rap, I mean, it certainly is not exclusive to metal, but it seems to fit pretty well, whether it's pot or whatever else. It's bands like Mysticum would always put on the never stop the madness change in their logo. And
yep. Tid Fan was just referencing that. Yeah. The Road Racer blurb they always had on the RC albums. Yep.
So yeah, and it's, like we were talking in the Discord server yesterday or today about, Sleeps Jerusalem. And I just got to believe that it's just people want to listen to that thing because they connect with the drug. The idea of just smoking pot is more appealing than actually listening to something that has more than 4 riffs for 40 minutes. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. But, this album has songs on it, and there's riffs on this album. Obviously, this is a pretty crushing record, actually. It's dark and evil, and it is very stoned, but it's also very heavy. And I could have pulled other...
I was very into Electric Wizard for a hot minute. But
I've got like
them anymore.
3 or 4 CDs too, and this was a moment in time where I liked this stuff, and it was part of my musical diet, and it just is not anymore. Along with stuff like Converge and Botch and all that other type. It's weird how I've just kind of moved on. I still have it in my collection if I ever want to circle back around, but I thought drugs should be talked about a little bit anyway, and those are my 2 examples.
No, that's a good pick. Yep.
All right, Rick, back at you.
I think I'm going to springboard off of what you just shown there. Like, I think if I'm going to direct somebody to that kind of stuff, especially like the Matt Pike stuff, like I would say start with like High on Fire, especially if you're coming from a more faster paced kind of material instead of going right to sleep.
The first High on Fire album, I love that record. I think that thing is amazing. It's their best album. I don't know. There's a vibe to that record I really like.
You're looking for riffs too, and you want more than like 4 riffs on the album, right?
I do.
Like at the same time, there's some of these bands that they do write some good music, but a lot of it's very samey. A lot of it is kind of you put it on, you listen to it for a moment. It's not meant to be very memorable. It's kind of like, and it helps if you already are on something, but if you're not, you're just folding laundry, or whatever. It's probably not something that going to be too appealing. Dope smoker, the pot leaf thing. It's kind of a trope, like you were saying. It's one of those things that in this particular genre, it's like the way people hail Satan. They hail the almighty leaf. You could say kind of started with Sabbath. Way back in the day. Another recent band, and I dig this one, the Doom Scroll from Weed Demon. You just look at that, it's like, all right, if we add Demon, there might be like 10% more seriousness taken on it with this thing. It's and of course, the mighty Wisconsin boys. It's you think about this kind of thing. These guys were doing it since the 90s, way back. And as a matter of fact, it's got a cool little insert. So for anybody who's curious on, not all weed's the same, like there is particular specimens, and they're trying to educate you at the same time. It just kind of give you a bit of a of a rundown. This was the days before this stuff became medicinal and recreational for the mass public consumption. But
was studying for my weed degree. I'm buying a fucking Bongzilla record.
I remember Relapse really pushing this stuff, and I remember at the time, I was in school and just going like, "Who's this for? Like, who's this audience that's really like?" But then, the curiosity got the best of me, and this was not like the typical run-of-the-mill stoner stuff. It wasn't sleep. This was more of the darker, harsher sludge, kind of stuff. And so if you're already coming from the death metal side, you're listening to I Hate God, this was an easier thing to reach for. If you don't like sludge and I Hate God, anything like that, this would be a harder thing to kind of push, for that. It does get kind of samey, it does kind of drag on. You're there for the heaviness, so you're there for, a bit of that bit of the goofiness, behind it. But it's still fun, but it's not something I bring up in conversations when I'm trying to talk about, the economy and existentialism, pull a Bongzilla record. But it's good for what it is. I have folded laundry to it, by the way. So.
Right on, Ellen.
All right, we'll go in a little different direction for the next one. This plays a little bit off of Marty's take on the bad album covers from earlier. There has always been of course, a do-it-yourself ethic to a lot of underground metal, especially, for smaller bands starting out. Budgets are limited. You're scraping enough to put out something, whether it's a demo, back in the day, more of a 7-inch thing. And yeah, you needed something for a cover, but you didn't have access to, good artists or, famous paintings or anything like that. So you did what you could. Lots of singles throughout the 80s, had these monochromatic picture sleeves, just black and white, because they couldn't afford color printing. And a lot of them are very simple designs, not amazing art. I've always got a soft spot for them, and I'm always impressed with how bands could come up with clever images to include, even though they're obviously kind of hand done minimal things. New wave of British heavy metal is notorious for lots of this. The one I picked as an example, though, is not a new wave of British heavy metal band. It's a band from Texas called Illusion. They made exactly one 7-inch single and never got any further than that. Back of the picture sleeve is pretty straightforward. You've got a lightning bolt and band photos. They had 2 vocalists, one male, one female. So they had 2 people sing for the band. For the picture sleeve, your name's Illusion. You probably, have literally been digging around in couch cushions to come up with enough money to press a few hundred of these. What do you do for cover art? You do this. They actually took the band's name and kind of turned it into a visual illusion to stress the fact that they're called Illusion. And that's the picture sleeve.
It's over-engineered.
How can you be in that band and not call your band Illusion? Yeah,
but
I would have vetoed that name.
Just the fact that, again, they don't have the resources to get something that's going to be a really badass killer looking, but they thought, well, okay, how do we do something that ties the artwork to the name of the band? Well, we make our logo into something that looks like an optical illusion, and it works. There's lots of examples of bands pulling off something similar to that, where it's not necessarily a lot of technical skill that's going into creating the art, but it actually does connect to something about either the band's name or one of the song titles, and just works really well. I always thought it was, clever and resourceful that bands could come up with these. Now, I do have to confess to one thing for full disclosure. What I'm showing here is a photocopy of this picture sleeve. This record's not the hardest one to find, and it's not very expensive, but finding one with an original picture sleeve is extremely difficult. I'm guessing most of them were pressed without sleeves. Once again, you often didn't even have enough of a budget to put all the copies of the single into a picture sleeve. You ran off 100 copies of a sleeve, and that was it. You were broke. Kinko's is giving you no more copies, so Yeah, someone did make me a photocopy to go with the single that I had. I've never been able to track down a copy with the original picture sleeve.
So you're saying that is an illusion of the original picture sleeve?
And exactly. You beat me to my own punchline. Well played, sir. So yes, it is, and I'm trying to be very clear that yes, they do not be under the illusion that I own the original on that one. I keep an eye out for it.
My mind
I
just
don't know if
keeps
I've ever
going to,
even seen more than 1 or 2 original copies for sale.
It's too much work though to read through that. You're looking at it, but that's the illusion. My mind goes to like Steve Miller Band, Abracadabra.
And yeah, it
doesn't
grab
you.
That particular picture sleeve doesn't scream heavy metal, and the band is not overtly metal. They're more on that hard rock side of things, not glammy, just more on the hard rock end of the spectrum. But it works. I like the resourcefulness and coming up with something like that.
All right.
Over to you, Marty. I'll catch up on some of the chat comments here while I listen to your next pick.
Certainly not new in the music world, but metal really kind of did this well. And thanks mainly to this gentleman right here, King Diamond. Abigail, probably one of the most notable concept albums. Actually, one of those albums that at the end of the day could have and should have maybe been made into a movie. You know, it could have, there could have been a script in here if you pursued it. Other bands, of course, you have Crimson by Edge of Sanity. And not only is it a concept album, it is designed to be one long song, which obviously people buy the vinyl of it. And there's a front side, there's an A side and a B side to it. And the way that the movements in the album and the song are made up, it feels like breaks, like extra songs. But metalheads, they started combining long, 40-minute long stories set to music. Sometimes the music is conceptual, like on Edge of Sanity, where it is custom made for the concept, and the concept alone of it being one long song is also kind of a rare thing in the music world. Maybe not in jazz and shit, like, I don't know. I don't pay attention to that.
It's kind of a compliment, because I think there was this perception that metalheads are kind of dim-witted. They wouldn't be able to sit through a over 10-minute track, but prove them wrong.
Yeah. Yep. And then everybody heard Rime of the Ancient Mariner and went to their school library and started checking out the book.
Yep, exactly. And really, this is kind of hand in hand with the horror thing, which is a big influence for metal culture. Horror movies, gore, which I'm going to touch on later in the conversation here. But I don't have a lot to add to this, but I, always thought that this was kind of a unique thing for metal, as part of the, I don't know, culture, I guess, but more so just interesting. It isn't just songs about rock and roll. It's actually, disc rot? Or is it just crap on my disc? Hard to say. Anyway, moving on. Rick.
That's a scary feeling. When you're a collector, you're like, I got this, what I think is a $50 CD, but now it's got disc rot.
It's got something going on.
My valuation.
I actually have the first Edge of Sanity, Nothing But Death Remains, and it has disc rot. It is.
Oh.
It isn't because it was played heavily. That album is great, but it's not as good as what they ended up doing. And mentioning Edge of Sanity, everybody, there's like a 3-hour long interview over on Gas Masks and Hand Grenades that Jeff did yesterday with Dan Swano. It's the second time on the show. It was a fantastic interview. Dan is an amazingly nice dude and likes to talk, and perfect combination. And the Wonder Twins powers activated, and I had other things going on, but I checked in here and there, and great interview. Very cool. So go check it out. The Swano interview over on Gas Masks and Hand Grenades. It happened yesterday. If you have 3 hours to spare, it's well worth it.
Yeah. After the interview, I was joking with Jeff that, I didn't know he was so camera shy or whatever, it's like, so he wants to do a follow-up interview, and I'm like, maybe you can coax him to finally maybe turn on the camera, but he's probably just going to wear a mask. It's just like, you won't see his face either way. So I don't see that being a winning
I don't know why he didn't do it, because everybody knows what he looks like. it's
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's still a good interview. His audio's good.
It could be a number of things, like like I had a zit earlier. I almost didn't hop on the stream. I was just like, I can't.
Those are things you share with the world. You're proud of those things, you know.
Yeah, some people are just too. Speaking of Swano, so you brought up edge of sanity, and one trope. This is particularly something you see specific with the prog guys. I even seen this with the prog, death metal, the other genres. But recently reissued the Moon Tower thing. You got the big gigantic eyeball thing. That's something I see all the time. It's not even like in the realm of metal either. Like it's just the whole prog thing in general. It's fascination with eyeballs.
That's his own eyeball too, I believe.
Is it?
Yeah, he took the picture of his eyeball.
Huh.
I think.
Yeah, I remember. This thing. I downloaded it in the Napster days, like not really knowing what it was. It just said Moon Tower.
It's great.
It blew my mind.
Yeah.
It's like whatever the Mellotron or whatever the thing that's on there. It's just like really made it unique, kind of in its own little way. Another thing that you notice this a lot with the early bands, especially what you call the bands that I guess today wouldn't be considered much metal, but Blue Oyster Cult, the Colored Band, Deep Purple, what's something that. But then you have, why not just bring it all together? You brought up Stargazer earlier, Rainbow.
God, I love that record.
Something that. So at the time, something like this drops, it's like that had to already kind of be a thing, because the word rainbow in of itself, it's not very metal.
True.
When you really sit down and think about it, right? It's like, for this to have worked the way it is, you got Richie Blackmore, anybody coming in who already so talented, were able to put together this, just classic, album. And it's just like, it all kind of came together. How would the world of metal be like if this thing never existed? You know what I mean? I think that it would have been a huge loss, not having something like this there. But the colors thing was something that was very common for a very long time. But my real pull is by the 80s, the metal thing was it gotten to a point where it was ingrained enough that the parodies started showing up, and the what do you call it? The comedy, the metal started appearing, and then you got because of the wave of British heavy metal, you got Cloven Hoof right here, and had to find other ways to bring the Satan and the Hell and the Inferno. I think Cloven Hoof is a very clever way of still kind of keeping that in there, but just different enough because nobody was taking this name. They kind of had their own kind of take on that verbiage, I guess, if you will. Interesting thing going on with the Inferno here. I'm thinking like the Burn album. But what's up with the fingernails? It's something that I also seen a few other albums also do. Hellstar.
I just want a back scratch. That's all I'm thinking about right now.
But the Spinal Tap model after these guys, like I don't know, but this is something that I will point to people as a very good quintessential example, really, of a really good new wave British heavy metal album. Like they hit all the marks on this right here. And I brought a Spinal Tap because, like, come on, you look at this. It's got all the tropes kind of just thrown in there. It's fun. Yep. They got all the stuff in there. They got the tights and they got the gauntlets. It's all there.
And I mean, they're trying to pull off a 4 elements theme with the costumes.
Yeah, but
it doesn't come across very well a lot of the
like
time.
It's too much. Like it feels right for like what 84, I guess, when this came out.
Oh, it was worse when they had the feathers and they look like rejects from the Ice Capades. Yeah.
So that's cool. They're still around, and it's like bands like these that I think that kind of can just keep that momentum going. But I think when people think of Cloven Hoof, they always go back to essentials like this one.
Okay.
Oh, Peter Crispos. Think of that.
Yeah, it's got some really good songs on it out of their catalog.
Yeah,
But
love
yeah,
that artwork in the back though. That little snake thing going on, a little weird, but still pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah. The funny thing with the stage outfits too, for some I get the costumes ended up resulting in them getting associated in the press with the more like the glam scene than the metal scene. Even though musically, they were very much a new wave of British heavy metal style band in terms of sound, but they kept getting kind of labeled like, with the glam crowd, like, we're not a glam band. We're trying to do something, cool with, the stage outfits, air, water, wind, fire, all this kind of stuff. And at one point, they were literally, very adamant in some printed interview for like Krang or something. It's like, look, we're not a glam band. We're a pure heavy metal band. That's it. We're sick of hearing about this glam stuff.
I feel like it's
okay,
kind of what happened.
It's laid to rest.
Too.
What was the very next, big live outing for the band? Playing at a big glam festival in the UK.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like, dudes, you're sending a mixed message here. We don't understand.
Yeah. Well, before I have you take over, Alan, Wilson wanted to see what the disc. I don't know if this is disc rod or not, but here's the silk screen side, and the back side. You see the silk screen is like coming through to into the media part.
Huh.
Yeah,
see the spots in the.
rod.
It doesn't play. I mean, it doesn't play anymore. So
that's a shame.
It's just weird. This is the only disc I've ever had that's ever done this. It's just weird. It just looks like the silk screen is working through to the other side. Good record. Yeah. All right, Alan, you're up.
Yeah, gotta say, Tip Fan is in quite the mood tonight. He's totally cracking me up all the time. Okay, this is one of my favorite weird little sort of sub tropes in 80s heavy metal. I don't know if it's still around, but I don't think it's quite as common as it was back then. Yeah, a lot of the heavy metal stuff we've talked about with the swords and the loincloths and all, it played into a lot of very macho imagery. What we'd think of these days as alpha male signaling and all of that. Tons of songs about womanizing and having scantily clad women and all that on the album covers. But then there was this subset of songs, as a common lyrical theme, that lots of bands had at least one song that fell in this whole category of being like tied up and whipped by like a dominatrix. And my representation for this is the first Savage Grace EP, The Dominatrix. But you gotta say, there's some rough tan lines going on this lady. We're just going to leave it at that. Not the best picture they could have taken of her, I'm guessing. It just has always struck me as kind of funny that these bands that were all about partying on the road and conquering how many women could they sleep with and all this kind of stuff, and would have these as very common song themes and stuff. All the corny Manowar songs. Woman, be my slave. But then a lot of those bands would come around later and do songs about ooh, tie me up and spank me. It's like, why? Why is this something you're secretly into? Why was this something that you thought of would make good lyrics for a metal song? It just seems so out of character compared to all the other themes of, strength, might, victory, virtue. Please give me a safe word. I don't get it. But lots of bands did it. Omen has one of those songs. Savage Grace played with the list just kind of goes on and on. Iron Cross from Florida had a song just titled S&M. And it's almost always from the vantage point of, the Mistress Spanks-a-Lot shows up and treats me like a naughty boy.
I kind of blame Star Wars. You have the visual of Jabba the Hutt with Leia with the chains around her neck and all that stuff.
But see, that's the other way around. Again, that's, woman, be my slave. You're my wench. But these songs, it's always the other way around. It's like, Yeah, it's like, yes, please. I've been naughty. Punish me. I've been trying to think. Where does this crop up? It could go all the way back to like Velvet Underground, maybe with Venus and Furs is something I thought of on the commute home. I was like, well, there is a history for that, even that predates metal, but that band, certainly is known and appreciated in lots of metal circles. Maybe it's going back to the Venus and Furs kind of thing as being an edgy topic, pun intended, for bands to touch on, that it's just one of those things that was taboo enough to have some shock value, even though again it's just at odds of this song's about put your manhole where my mouth is, and the next song is like please don't hurt me too bad. So
See,
I always get a kick out of it.
That's what glam metal fixes, where the men can look like the women. You don't have the alpha male thing. Everybody's just one thing. And
yeah, which of course cause pushback in other directions, like for the thrash fashion being the antithesis to the glam fashion. But yeah,
they borrow each other's stockings. It works.
Yeah, but yeah, it's always been just one of those things that tickles my funny bone a bit, pun intended. That so many metal bands did have that, had the S&M song in their repertoire, and a lot of the songs are good. It's not like they were just cheesy one-off joke songs. They fit in the catalog too. Torture Me by Omen's a great Omen song. It's just got a weird lyrical theme. So that is my pick for this round. Marty?
People that gravitate to extreme forms of music all belong on the land of misfit toys, don't we?
No way, yeah.
Something. I mean, you look at like other like industrial or other strains of electronic music, there is a level of perversion in their lyrics and violence and perversion as well. So I mean, it isn't exclusive just to metal, but no, it's an extreme music thing, I think.
Anybody who's picked up a Lords of Acid album, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, Christopher. Not fun quote. Yep.
Oh, here we go. Mr. Torture. Yeah. See, they all have it. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know what? It's one thing I was thinking as we were pulling stuff for this episode was the only time you ever really hear about Vikings. Obviously, I don't live in Scandinavia. I'm sure Vikings are part of the culture there, and it's very much part of their economy. You got the tour, you go to Salem, Massachusetts, you can go into a million different witchy stores and buy pagan-y type stuff. And I'm sure if you live in Scandinavia, there's that sort of thing as well. Plus you've got the history there. You can go visit it. But for the world at large, the only time you hear about Vikings other time is if they have like some discovery that they share on the news or whatever. But I think metal has given the Vikings more props in the last 30, 40 years than really regular news has, it seems like. There's Bathory, probably one of the most staunch supporters of Viking culture. And, Corthon arrived at that sound via his appreciation for Manowar and Metallica, mixing that together, moving away from the black metal rawness and into something more cinematic and composed and triumphant. And, it actually perfectly mirrored the essence of what, obviously there was no metal back in the Viking days, but just the whole thought, the cinematic visions that go with, rowing across the ocean to discover Vinland and, conquering England or scaring the shit out of English people just so they give them a bunch of money and then they'd sail in, get paid off essentially, and sail home with a booty in their long ships. But metal has been one of the biggest proponents for pro-Viking culture for many years now, and I think it's maybe odd in the greater music world. You don't hear a lot of pop. Lady Gaga isn't singing the latest Viking pillaging raid.
Yeah,
in 893
songs.
Yeah.
Well, on the other hand, Marty, she is always horny.
Well, she has 800 boyfriends.
Right. Yeah.
I gotta give it to Corthon though, because the those early batteries, he was setting the template for what the second wave guys were going to do as far as the tropes of what that black metal was going to be. You know, you look at the debut and the returns out of the black mark. You know, they all had that already going on, and he just quickly moved on from that. You know, when he was moving into the Viking stuff, so he kind of set that precedent for those guys. And it's just interesting. You know, once the second wave kind of took hold, everybody was doing the goat and everything else.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. All right, Rick. What's your next? You know, you guys are talking about the kind of the women in metal and just, you know, like, and the whole, like, you know, just I tried the alpha male thing, but being short, it doesn't work. Like I try and I don't have that push and pull. So I'm happy just in my own little spot. But when it comes to, you know, what's going on with metal and people kind of pushing, I guess what you call being on stage and kind of being grandiose and kind of just being, you know, I think of bands like Black Lace, you know, they had that thing going on. You know, this is kind of the early 80s. I know they had the two albums. What was the name? Mariano. This city has both albums. It's got the Get It While It's Hot and Unlaced kind of thing. And you had to dig deep into the Rubbermaid container to get that one.
I did. It was all in the back. It was a little sticky, but you know, I managed to pry it a little loose. But you do have the lace. You got the chains. You know, you got a little bit of the studs kind of going on. And this was kind of happening like before the glam really took the big hold it did, because it was the mid, a little bit in the later 80s. They were already kind of pushing that. You know, I mean, come on, you got the guy here with the fishnets, you know, kind of going on there. But these guys were pretty heavy, you know, than what the visuals kind of signified here. You know, and then you move on to like some of the more modern bands. You know, obviously, you know, I think the name, you know, Savage Mattress is one of the ones that are going around now and touring, and she's great. You know, it's just like, you know, she's I don't run into this often. You know, somebody that's shorter than me. She's like, here, you know, for Stacey Savage, but she's got a gigantic presence, you know, on stage.
And a big
everybody
knife.
else is much bigger. You know, you got the trope here, right, with the knife and everything else. But she makes it work. You know, it's kind of got the costume and everything going on. But this right here, it might imply that it's more classic heavy metal than it is, but it's actually more in the vein of something like Judas Priest. You know, so it's fun, you know, but you know, it's very in that American vein of heavy metal. But you know, I feel like a lot of women are not just represented enough, you know, in metal, because again, it makes sense. It's very male dominated by this, but every now and then, you know, when you see like an act like this come along, it shows that there's still a lot of room, you know, and there's still a lot of talent there, you know, worth exploring. But really cool, Dark and Dangerous. Like, it came out last year, so if you guys haven't explored it yet, really cool, really fun listen. Yeah, check out Blacklist too. This is good.
Review of that album on Heavy Metallurgy for your convenience, should you care to investigate. All right, Alan.
All right. Yeah, one other thing I did think of as Rick was talking about that, not just in terms of like strong women figures in metal, but also tying into the whole BDSM thing we talked about last round. Mm-hmm. You did have the band Bitch, which was the second thing I think released on Metal Blade, was their first release with, you know, Betsy. And so, you know, that was a very high visibility band for a period of time there in the earliest 80s. And she had, you know, that stage character, which reportedly is very, very out of character for her in terms of her real personality. But, you know, the band realized it was, you know, a look and a gimmick that would get them attention. So she went with it, but apparently it was something she wasn't really comfortable doing. But that would be another early example of it maybe having some impact on heavy metal and bands doing songs playing off of that whole, dominatrix kind of look. All right, next, let's go in another different direction. This is a theme that's popped up in black metal over the years. That I see a lot of flipping through, you know, used bins and looking at online distros. When you see black metal bands, there are certain themes that tend to pop up, and no, it's not the one you're thinking of. The one I've chosen is landscape pictures on covers. An example I chose for this was Panopticon. You get a lot of black metal albums these days that, here is a nature scene. They keep, the title and stuff, it's somewhere there, but usually not too obtrusive. And there's nothing wrong with these. These bands obviously often have kind of a strong connection to nature, especially when you're dealing with things that lean towards that Cascadian strain of black metal. It kind of makes sense. At the same time, I do feel like it's kind of gotten to a point where I see the cover picture. I know kind of, you're going to be one of these atmospheric black metal bands with, back to nature values. But it does get hard at a certain point to tell them apart. I start feeling like, didn't I just see this album 3 boxes ago back over in the L section? It's like, no, the hill was more in the middle of the picture that time. Here, the slope's on one side. Or, well, this one shows pine trees in autumn, and the other album was spruce pines, and it was taken more in like late spring. You got to know a lot about your trees to start to differentiate some of these covers. It just feels like, one of those themes that you don't necessarily think of as a heavy metal thing at first. Again, metal's power, violence, fire, big things. And then you've got this other, particular subgenre that's gone totally Bob Ross in terms of their cover art a lot of the time. And some bands mix it up, may have like, some kind of watermark like symbol superimposed with the art, which can give it, some more personality. But I'm surprised, how many bands you have just gone for this very straightforward, here's a nice picture of some happy little trees in a valley kind of thing. It doesn't scream metal, but I guess it does convey the music from this particular.
People don't know the research. The Appalachian stuff is different than like the Pacific Northwest. It's like,
once again, if you know your trees, you could probably pick out. Like this particular one, it's very clearly from the northeastern Shenandoah Valley, because you can tell down here, the great eastern albino spruce pine is the only one that has this distinct color of foliage, but only for, about a 2-month period in late autumn, and only if the annual precipitation's been below 13 inches per year through the late winter. Facts!
Every Wolves and Throne fan will point out the inaccuracies in those trees.
Yes. And yes, just to be, again, full disclosure, every single thing I just said about that cover and the trees is completely wrong, I'm sure.
All right.
All right, Marty.
The Cascadian stuff is interesting, though, because it shows another side of black metal that's not always, it doesn't have all the tropes that I was talking about earlier with the go.
And that's why I picked it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's actually, I didn't think about that, but that's another reason to kind of pull that. It kind of stemmed from the, I think Weakling, and then everybody kind of just latched on that, which I also heard might be getting a repress.
That's what it sounds like.
There's a rumor mill going around.
Really? Is it finally people talking about it for real this time?
You could finally put away those bootlegs.
Flippers buy up 5 to 10 copies of it, so when it runs out and there's another 10 years before
it'll be another 666 copies, and it'll disappear.
Yeah. All right, it's my turn. All right, let's get this out of the way. My second lunchbox of the evening. But this one is the one I used to carry on the school bus every day back in, when this come out, 1977. Yep, and it still has the thermos in it and a lot of rust, because this would get thrown in the snow. But yeah, I'm showing you a KISS lunchbox because of Shock Rock. Yes. Alice Cooper probably set the ball rolling here. KISS took it, and not that KISS is metal by any means, but I think they influenced the look of it and the stage show of it to a certain degree, where bands like Guar could pick up the reins and make it, KISS evolved it quite a bit beyond Alice Cooper. And of course, bands like Guar took it to the next step as well. They made it, this is kind of a comedy metal band in a certain way, but their stuff rips. This is a really, really good album. But yeah, this is, again, appealing to the visual aspect of our music, and whether you like Guar or not, seeing them live is a hoot. Whether you like Kiss or not, seeing them live is a spectacle. And it's sometimes the spectacle might be a little bit more impressive than the music, but obviously I'm a Kiss fan. I was listening to Radical Research today, and they were talking about how wonderful the cover was on Realm's Endless War of Eleanor Rigby, which of course I'm thinking my Black Sabbath is Kiss and Black Sabbath, or my Beatles is Kiss and Black Sabbath. Anyway, I fucked that up. But anyway, there's just a visual aspect to certain forms of metal, which I'm going to continue on with in my next poll. But I figured I'd deal with the extreme first, and really, slaves shooting things out of their appendages onto willing concert goers is certainly a level of shock rock that Alice Cooper never really touched upon. He was chopping off heads and dancing around with a snake. Yeah. He wasn't.
I mean, what he did was extremely extreme for
the
his
era.
Yeah. I mean, without him, you probably don't have a Guar later on.
Exactly. You don't have Kiss. You don't have Guar. I mean, Kiss, it looks a lot different, and they probably don't last. They remain Wicked Lester and fail into obscurity like so many other bands from the 70s, because their music, thankfully they had good songs, but their songs aren't so exceptional that they're going to stand the test of time without a visual push.
Yep. Gene Simmons gets a nice, quiet, blue-collar job, and 1,000 lawyers are not able to buy their super yacht because he's not their client.
Well, he was a teacher. I mean, he was doing another job and just invested everything in Kiss, at a certain point. Yeah. All right.
Good call. Yeah, and you're right about the whole visual thing. I mean, like my parents, or at least my dad, went and saw Kiss years ago, and he could not care less about that style of music. That's completely the wrong generation for him. But someone, he had a friend who was going. He's like, "Hey, you want to go just to check it out?" He's just like, "Yeah, why not?" It's he just went to see the spectacle of it and thought it was kind of cool. But he couldn't have named a Kiss song if you asked him to.
Yeah. Yep. All right, Rick.
Yeah, Kiss jumped ahead on that metal look, particularly Gene. I think very early on, it's like, despite not being a metal band, but how many people have picked up guitar eventually became a metal band because of Kiss, right? Like that's always going to be, one of those things that it's just going to be a topic that I think most people can't deny, but then you get to like other bands that kind of blur the line, coming from the hard rock into metal. Sometimes there's like a bit of a glam period. Some people can't quite distinguish as easily. I think Wasp was kind of one of those bands, and then you had Lizzie Borden. Talk about visuals. There you go, visualize. So kind of giving a picture. I've always liked that logo. It's kind of a bit of that like retro 60s cool. Batman thing going on. Almost, it just kind of reminds me of that. But it's pretty cool. But you know what? I think a band worth mentioning is, being that, he recently retired, Dee Snider, but, Twisted Sister was always one band that I think that came in at just the right time. It's like they had all the tropes, and they took a different angle. Instead of just calling themselves straight out glam or anything like that, they just completely took Dee in particular.
Is that autographed?
No, it's just saying it's an 82 pressing.
To Rick, stay hungry.
There you go.
Always stay hungry.
I'm always under the blade. But this album is just like, it's one of my favorites. It's just so fitting of its time. I think of like how the quintessential sound of the early 80s, at least with the US. Twisted Sister is one of those bands that I always, like, every time they came on the TV, I couldn't leave the room, no matter what I was doing. It was just such a spectacle, about them. And Snyder was such a front man, and then there was like this one, and this is one of those examples where like it kind of just it's a bit of the gimmick to kind of get you to pick it up, but it's cool. They come out and play album, and you had the D kind of pop out thing.
Yikes!
Mine doesn't have the pop up. Love
Oh,
that.
I've seen a few of those. I feel sorry for you people. You guys should It's like,
With that album, it should have been a toilet lid.
it
that
predates
pops up.
Ninja Turtles, man. He had his own secret of the ooze kind of going on here. No, but it's cool. I think here it's when he tried to like do like actual singing, and all this, and it just, I think it lost a little bit of that, a little bit of the edge that he had on the previous albums. By the time, was it 85, 86 when this came out? File Store Burns, though, that song is one of my favorites.
There's like 2 good songs on that record. The rest is
Yeah.
really not great.
Oh God, what's the really awful one? It's like Be Cruel. No, it's the one that's like very rockabilly, and it's just like,
Oh yeah.
it's just terrible. Yeah, Be Cruel to Your School or whatever. Like, it's just,
Oh.
why?
It's a bad album. You could tell it's the
You know.
D. Snyder experience at this point.
It's somebody went with this. They're like, we gotta get a way to pick this thing up. Like I said, it's not the most terrible thing, but it's there are some good songs on it. But Under the Blades, it's where it's at. But they're a band that's definitely worth mentioning. They were very prominent in the MTV era, and they kind of lost a little bit of the metals they went on. They kind of were more in that hard rock. It's like, you're not Joan Jett. You don't have to say rock and roll 20,000 times, in your album, but this is one of those bands that did. Like, I get it, but it's kind of what it was the thing. But, this band had a lot of the tropes that was definitely the right time, the right temperature for what was going on at MTV. And I fell for it, I kind of went all in. I didn't dress like my sister going to school. Just got to make sure I cleared that up.
Right.
I didn't steal her mascara.
Okay, Alan.
All right. Yeah, which one to do next? Oh, let's bring this up. Band photos, almost universally across different metal subgenres. There's one consistent thing you can count on seeing over 90% of the time. Metal band members are not allowed to smile. Band pictures, you're always supposed to be, very, at least just plain faced, to serious, to pissed off looking.
Bon Jovi never got the memo.
My favorite was pensive sky gazing. That's always good too.
Like, you can't be, oh, you're taking my picture. Like, I'm lost in thought. I'm not even paying attention to it. But yeah, it's one of those unwritten rules that you're not supposed to show any kind of positive emotion when you're having your picture taken for a heavy metal album. And I guess it just plays back into the whole tough image or something. But I mean, you're an offshoot of rock and roll. You're playing high energy, catchy, fast music that was meant to be very exciting. Seems like you'd want to convey the fact that you're enjoying it and that people should be happy about it. But you just don't see it in a lot of band photos. Again, there are exceptions, but in general, it's always, the grumpy looking guys. It seems like they just found out someone shit in their Wheaties 10 minutes after they finished licking the bowl clean, and now they're out to, exact revenge. I didn't pick an example of people scowling on a record. Instead, I picked one of the exceptions to it, which is Motorhead's Snakebite Love. Not one of the better Motorhead albums, in my opinion. I revisit this from time to time, but yeah, it's not the Motorhead album for me.
That's a great picture, though.
I love the band photo on the back because
Candid.
They're all actually smiling. They look like they're having a good time. And again, Motorhead is fun, good time, rock and roll kind of music. It would make sense to, break out and smile when you're hearing it. But yeah, great picture of him, especially just, the fact that they caught, Lemmy White. He looks like he's just, literally cannot stop laughing. I don't know if, Mickey just, farted on him right before they snapped the picture or what. Somebody told a really funny joke. Something's happened there, but yeah, it's like, this is a great photo of the band that makes me happy to see it. I wish, more bands had that kind of mentality in their photo shoots rather than just standing there looking all, serious cat does serious business kind of, meme things. It's okay to smile in your band.
Not having a mustache does expose it all, though. Like, I know from experience because I can't freaking grow one. If you had the Fu Manchu thing going on, a lot of your smile would be kind of covered up.
But yep. So that's one. Yeah, the universal scowl in heavy metal band photos. Why has it got to be that way so often? I don't know.
Now is a good time to mention, I don't remember the exact name of the band, but Mickey D just announced a new band coming out with Hal Peltino and Andy LaRock from King Diamond. They got the old King Diamond band back together. Lex something or other.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Wow.
And they're using the vocalist, what's his name? Brandon from Pagan Altar and Sumerlands and Magic Circle is going to be singing for them. I've got the name right here somewhere because my wife actually sent it to me this morning.
Lex something.
Lex Legion.
Lex Legion. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. I don't know if it'll show up well or not.
Oh, yeah. Hold on.
Yep. The wife sent it to me earlier today. So there's the guys trying to get the text to show up better. Yeah, Metal Injection had something announcing about it for Lex Legion. It just the blurb says, 4 former King Diamond members and Pagan Minds vocalist, not Pagan Altar. So my mistake there. Join forces in Lex Legion debut album arrives this June. Pagan Minds, a pretty long-running Euro power metal band. They lean kind of on the proggy side of things. I didn't know I haven't heard of them in a long time, but they were kind of popular turn of the century. They made some noise in those circles. So yeah, that would be cool.
Little foreshadowing here. If you're wondering what's going on with the Scorpions and for the long term, their drummer is making other bands with. There's chances are that Scorpions are going to retire soon, and makes me wonder what's going on with the King Diamond, long-awaited King Diamond albums that have been talked about forever. If your half of your main songwriting crew is joining in writing for another band.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Sorry,
yep.
Go ahead.
And Sunday, sorry, I had the wrong Pagan band there, so not Brandon's vocals.
Yeah, you actually had me worried for a second. I kind of want another Pagan Altar. I know they came out with one last year, but I was like,
it was a good album, and it seemed to just it did not get as much attention as I thought it was going to, because they did a good job on the album.
They were using some of the older material when Terry was still around, but I feel like with this new one, it's going to be probably all new stuff, and that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Yep. Yeah, I hope it clicks a little bit better. So it was very surprising, that album. It seemed like something people were anticipating and waiting for, and then it came out and crickets. Just never heard a thing about it. Sue reviewed it for Heavy Metallurgy, and even the review didn't get like very many views.
It was on my list. It was in my top 20.
Surprising. Yeah, no, I understand. It's not a perfect album, but they did a really good job on it.
Hey Phil, what's going on, man? Everybody, I just want to say next Friday, Phil from Chromium Dioxide Radio is penciled in for our guest on Friday. So we don't have a topic yet, but we'll figure that out.
It's what we're going to everyone's waiting to see if we see the shadow of the Barbecutioner kind of come out of that groundhog hole.
Never know.
We're hoping.
If he sees his shadow, it's 6 more episodes. Right, Phil?
I think that's how that works. Yep.
He's the Punxsutawney Canadian.
Right. All right. I guess I'm up next. Okay. We're talking about shock rock and bands with a thing. I decided to pick bands that wore masks. Anonymity in metal.
Oh yeah.
And obviously the obvious pull here is Ghost, but I don't have any Ghost. You got the Portal, the guy with the clock on his head. Of course, you got Crimson Glory.
Do you want me to help you? I'll go grab my slip knots real quick.
I mean, the glam. They looked glam. They are awesome metal band, but they certainly look glammy. And you put those frosted tips in a silver mask. Oh, come on now, that's something else. And you got bands also on the extreme side. Bands like Migwa, bands like Uada. There's just countless bands that are going for that
Oh, it's such a trend nowadays.
It's a total trend. Hoods.
It's almost hard to find a black metal band who's not wearing masks in the past couple of years.
Oh, the hell, the band.
Ara from Switzerland does it.
Yep.
The Gorea,
Imperial Triumphant, does it.
The Gorea just came out with an album. They're one of the bands.
Midnight, Ghoul.
Yeah.
I mean, it's countless, and it just goes to show that in this market there are so many bands. Too many bands. There's too many bands, and you need to do something to get a leg up from the competition. So I don't know if anymore doing a mask or concealing your identity is a slam dunk, but at one point it would create an aura of mystery, and it would be one thing that would bring people from a visual aspect in to check out your music and your stage show. Guar was doing it. It started with Kiss. Kiss, without the internet, they were able to go for a decade almost, without anybody ever seeing their faces that they didn't want to see their faces. They were able to pay off reporters. They were, they'd go out covered. I mean, what a nightmare that must have been. But still, that whole mystery, it was intriguing to people. That's another thing to bring the marketing around to benefit your brand. And nowadays it's tough. I mean, once Ghost, their whole identities were blown in a court case, but still people still go to see the spectacle, and they evolved into a massive arena band. So the visual stuff still has an impact, even though so many people are doing it now. Like that new band with the French name, that they're dressed up in polka dots and they play that atonal weird. It's like a meme band that blown up, gone viral. Everybody's talking about them now.
Yeah.
So it's
people are naming bands in the chat faster than I can get the comments on the screen.
Locust. Yep. Tons. So I mean, that's kind of a rare thing in the music world, complete anonymity, and the metal crowd was all in on it. So
most other genres you want to be highly visible. I'm guessing some of the electronic genres, they play into that kind of mystery side thing too. But
there was that dead mouse guy who had like literal mouse.
All right, Rick, you're up.
But there will only be one Buckethead. The KFC thing, I guess, was working for him for a while. He posts like 40 albums a year.
They are cool, Aquafresh. For Josh, they're definitely cool.
Got a few random ones here, like just kind of like based on some previous conversations. But like, you were talking about like the swords being a big thing in metal, and but the guns thing, I remember. I must have been like in middle school, or was it, or just on the verge of getting to middle school, and the NWA thing was big, and the whole, they protect our neighborhoods. They're supposed to be, and then the body count drops, right? This is the one with the cop killer, on it, and it's got the pistol in the back and all that stuff. It's I was very amused when this came out. I've had several of back. I'm from a small suburb town, and where Skid Row's from, if you can guess. And they, the cool kids were the ones that had this, and they were the ones blaring it. Back when people still walked around with boom boxes, And I expanded my vocabulary through this album right here.
There you go.
During this time. I mean, this is still considered. This is more, I guess, a crossover. Kind of was more hardcore crossover, kind of in that category. But this is a different take. Kind of what was going on at the time. But it's fun. Ice-T. Ended up playing a cop himself. It was funny enough. Also, when you talk about artwork in metal. We talk about some of the particular artists who you do enough of this work, you almost kind of create this sort of aesthetic within metal itself. And I feel like Away was one of those guys. Here's Behold the Octopus. I could have pulled a Voivod easily, but kind of want to do something a little different. This is an old EP split with was it Arthur Lem? And it's just because he has such a distinctive style. You know, you look at this, you know it's him.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, and this is the kind of thing that works, I think, only in metal. You know, and it's also a particular branch of metal. It's got to be so weird and out there. But also don't know, this is Cardinal Marston's band. It's very technical, experimental. You know, it's weird, you know, which would make sense, you know, kind of, you know, where Voivod, it's kind of there. Yeah, you know, they're not you know, they're a little more technical than the Voivod, you know, but they're all weird in their own way too. But yeah, I mean, you look at something like this. So I think this was worth a mention within metal. It's just kind of like how this kind of thing also has its own kind of identity kind of within it. There's this sort of subgenre of nerds and science fiction and imagination that's kind of thrown into this. And then you got this. And you brought up swords earlier. And, you know, this one has a sword in the logo. But this is a good album, you know, and band's still around, but it's kind of like, what the hell am I looking at? Blitzkrieg.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's another one. You know, it's kind of like, you know, it's a cool logo. You know, and you know, this is one of those albums at the time that would expand your vocabulary. Like, what's a Blitzkrieg? You know, if you weren't listening to Metallica, I guess at the time. But it's just, this is one of those albums that makes you look at it. You look at it for too long, you're still not going to walk away satisfied. You're like, I still don't know what the hell's going on.
Yep.
You know this. So you just force yourself to listen to the record. The production on this is weird. It almost sounds like it's live.
It's not good.
Like
No.
kind of
the production's not good. No.
You know, but if you can get past that, you know, you spend enough time, so you start to really get into it. But it's good stuff. But like I said, once you get past the production and once you get past the cover, I guess should I say, but I still can't explain it. But
it's like Caterpie got a mega evolution or something.
Like, did this thing exist? I don't know. What's with that statue? Like, what is he humping? I don't know. Like, there's just too many questions in the air. And why did all their photos have to be upside down? Like, it's just see, I can't think too much into this because I go right to the music.
Yeah. All right. Alan.
I'm guessing they were thinking, you know, the Bitches Sin Predator album had this big winged looking thing on the cover that was awesome, but the album sucked. We can do better, but we'll keep the same cover concept.
They clearly had an art budget, a small one, but they could have done something more interesting, like cohesive.
All right, let's see for this one. Since Marty has ducked off for the moment, I will go with this one. Birds. A surprisingly large number of metal albums, songs, even band names feature birds. And birds aren't exactly the animal you think of as like, you know, top of the animal kingdom, going to most like represent, you know, your fierce independence and all. But man, there's a lot of birds.
People in California. They have a fascination with birds.
Is so much birds. I mean, I would try and think like, where does this go or come from? I don't know. But even like, you know, Budgie, you know, kind of proto metal, at least on some songs. The band's actually named after a bird. For an example, I picked a oddball one, the Grudge album, which, you know, big chrome bird right here on the cover of it. Grudge, if you're not familiar with them, a little hard to describe. This is not the best album ever pressed into wax. They have a little bit of a carnivore vibe, sans the talent level, but it's still kind of fun. They have some of that same kind of, you know, post-apocalyptic, slightly over the top, tongue-in-cheek aspect to them, which is kind of fun. I mean, you get songs on here like Maximum Suction, White House Sluts. Let's see. You have both Hostage and Hostage Rescue. I think there's some kind of mini epic drama going on there.
Concept.
So, maybe kind of. But I mean, they didn't go full out. They didn't get the costumes, you know, like you know, Pete and the guys did in Carnivore. So yeah, it's this is not a lost gem. This is not some hidden banger that you've never heard of before. It's kind of fun in an amateurish, dopey kind of way. But the point is, big fucking bird on the cover. And so many metal bands have used birds, bird names, or bird imagery.
It really left room for the name on the bottom. Like the wing just takes up most of that space.
It's yep, the bird definitely dominates over the band logo. I mean, hell, Primal Fears made an entire career of nothing but putting the same bird on 13 album covers now. So many eagles, hawks. Yeah. I'm always surprised it's birds and it's not more like wolves or lions or some kind of big, bears, some kind of big, vicious, more predatory carnivore. But birds, you can find them all over the history of heavy metal. I got nothing more other than that. There's a hell of a lot of birds out there. You could build your own flock of seagulls with a metal collection quite easily.
Now would be the good time. Ryan Muldoon in the chat. Everybody get ready in 2026 for myself and Ryan's new side project called Chickadee. It's coming at you in 2026. So Ryan, I'm going to send you some files. Get ready to do some singing on that or some shredding or whatever it is you do. So Chickadee, everybody. We're going to add to the bird lexicon here.
Lot of birds out there.
I would just say bird is the word.
Bird is the word. Oh no. Yep. All right. I am still on the images and imagery, or not imagery, band image. Kiss set a ball rolling, of course, and you get bands, the black metal scene in particular, they ran with it. You got your swords, you got your spikes, you got your corpse paint. And without corpse paint, what does black metal have? The tulka, the chains and the corpse paint. You got the pensive sky, gazing, raging, invisible orange attack. Black metal brings an aesthetic, and it is so prevalent in their music, they demonstrate it on their album covers. And again, here you go with the bird, Alan. There you go. There it is.
Another bird.
Another bird.
You got plenty of birds.
The dove or whatever the hell, the grouse or the quail or whatever the hell that thing is.
It's an eastern starling. Now, come on, Marty. Let's get our taxonomy straight here. It's an eastern Norwegian starling. You can clearly tell it by the shape and contour of the proximal tail feathers. Man, what would you guys do without me to make this shit up as I go?
So, yeah, this is a culture, a subculture within the metal realm that is not really shared with the rest of the world, with the rest of the musical culture. You don't see a lot of pop artists or country artists donning corpse paint. Although that would be hilarious. that would be hilarious. A new crossover is born. All right, Rick, I'll be right back.
So I will show an example. So one of the big things with metal is the horns. Started with Dio, and it was used visually on a lot of albums, usually something satanic or along those lines, and nobody had an issue with it, over time. But every time I pull this thing out and I see it, I'm like, this is one of those cases where it doesn't work for me. And I'm not talking about unicorns. I'm talking about, so Behemoth was moving out of their, I guess what you call their raw or black metal period, incorporating more death metal elements into the sound. By the time Satanica came out, this thing here never quite did much for me. It always felt like, why couldn't Nurgle do something? I don't know. Just, were they limited with their Photoshop at the time? Was there something that's, they didn't have a budget for two horns? It's just, I couldn't figure it out. This is actually not a bad album. When you think about how they were trying to do the transition of the stuff at the time, I can't say I'm much of a Behemoth fan anymore. And as the years kind of progressed, I just kind of lost interest.
He's made it hard to stay interested. Yeah.
But it's just the cover here never quite did it for me here. Like, there are examples where like there's use cases where it could be a little more visceral and interesting. Like one album I do like, and it's kind of I don't want to say it's got some gothic undertones, but it's a little more. The sound actually, the vibes are more of a stoner metal in a lot of ways. So if you talk about horns, so you're jumping from this unicorn demon looking thing over here, and a Bloody Hammers, I think, kind of did something. Now, granted, it's just a mask, but that's a very good, simple, direct visual approach, use of horns. In your album artwork. I still think their debut is still one of the best. They got. I don't know. The band hasn't really been doing much as of late. I'm gonna segue though to something that it's a bit of a story. So another trope in metal, and I'm gonna go to a little more on the extreme side. Goregrind. A lot of Goregrind in Rika Putrefaction. When you think of the visuals, it's very disgusting to look at, right? That's the whole point. It's just piles of stuff. At that point, you're like, is that a pituitary gland? I don't know what I'm looking at. it's just meat everywhere. Is that a tooth? So when I think of an example of how when it's done right, it's just kind of just that like Blood, one of those bands. So this is the one that came after Christbait, Ogathiel's Pathane. I don't know how you say it, but German man, good stuff. Here they kind of went dirtier than they did on Christbait on their album. Really, really good band, and I feel like they're not talked about, appreciated enough. But then, not too long ago, I did a blind buy, and what I thought I was picking up was a grind, Goregrind album, and I should have known by the name. So in the back, I'm looking at this. I'm like, this must be the sickest couple in the world if they're gonna put out an album where the cover looks like this. This is a bloody mess of just, I don't know. So I put it in. I'm expecting something to be utterly filth, and no, it's ambient noise, electronic. Called Leslie Keffer and Roger Stella. They got quite a few projects under that banner. Never heard of them, and again, blind buy. I'm looking at this. This is not how you market your stuff. If you try, and to add insult to injury, they put this at the record store under the Goregrind stuff. So they thought it was a Goregrind album at the same time. So this is an example of misdirection, because the trope is so ingrained of what we're expecting when we see stuff like this kind of thrown together. So just be careful out there. You're thinking you're getting the bloodiest, most disgusting thing in the world. Might just be more Taylor Swift, for all you know. You don't know.
Yeah.
Do your research.
And to piggyback on Rick's topic here, I too had the gore thing, from
you go. Yep.
Streamlined, slick looking to obviously I showed the carcass here a minute ago, to just completely sick and wrong. And hey, 2 Australia pulls in.
I'm not expecting
10 minutes.
Taylor Swift with that.
Yeah, that could be her right there. 2 Australia pulls. Shout out to Simon and Lee. Yeah, the filth, the gore. This isn't the one with the penises on. No, that's the other one. But it's just funny how this, as sick as you can be, could be at the forefront of your artwork design, and people buy shirts of it.
Yep.
Alan,
that's a good one. Well, in something that I don't think we expected to have happen tonight, we'll have back-to-back Behemoth showings. Another trend that pops up in metal, and this isn't hugely common, but there are bands here and there that have done it over the years, and it's not something that is very common in other strands of music to my knowledge, is bands that will give you like very detailed liner notes about what the source material for the song lyrics were, and how the song came together, and sort of breaking down the song. Not just they'll give you the lyrics and print those, but then give you anywhere from a paragraph to an entire page worth of text about the creation of the song. Nile is famous for this, with Carl writing these really detailed expositions about exactly like which scroll within the Book of the Dead is this particular song drawing inspiration from. But Nurgle does it too. And so, yeah, I pulled Behemoth's Demigod, which is not one of my more favorite Behemoth albums. This one, as I recall, has got a really strange production that I don't care for. But yeah, during at least this phase, of the band for a few albums, he was writing, these very detailed, kind of paragraphs breaking down the inspiration and source material for the lyrics for each song. No surprise that it's a ton of Aleister Crowley and such related things. It's not necessary, of course. Most people probably never read it. I do find it interesting when bands do that, and I'll usually take the time to at least skim through them. I may not sit there and memorize them word for word, but it's interesting that some metal artists will take the time, and go to the effort of getting these things included. And that does have to be sort of a decision that's made. They've got to sit down and write it. Someone's got to edit it. And then it has to be incorporated into booklet layouts and stuff. And this causes some amount of, issues at times. Famously, there's one Nile album in the middle of the Nile catalog that doesn't have any liner notes. And there was some hubbub with the label that someone didn't want them in there, and it definitely rubbed Carl the wrong way. And on the following album, he kind of made it a point in the liner. It's just like, hey, everybody, I'm back, and from now on, there will be fucking liner notes in every goddamn Nile album, and you can count on it. So, yeah, it was a point of contention.
Just when you think people don't read those things, that's when the backlash happens.
But, yeah, people miss them. It was noticed. And so, yes, I don't fully, subscribe to all of, Behemoth's, very, pro Crowley self-determination kind of stuff. But it is interesting just to read through what his thought process is with writing this material. I'm okay with some Behemoth from this era. Like I said, Demigod's production, I remember the vocal production in particular just being really off-sounding. Haven't played this album in several years. But some of the others from this same era, I don't play them often, but I don't mind having them around. I probably own more Behemoth albums than I should, but kind of cool. I like the black metal era a bit more, but I don't mind some of this more, technical.
That sounds like a Tuesday episode for you. Like, I own more of this albums than I should, for whatever particular.
That could be. So why do I have this many albums by this band? Now that could be a fun one to poke around at. You're right, Rick. So yeah, liner notes in metal. What other genres? I mean, yeah, the Beyoncés and Bad Bunnies of the world. I don't think they double the size of their CD booklet to give you the full background and history of what inspired them to write the music. I mean, what are they going to say? Some guy in a corporate, house or office building wrote this song. I asked AI to put together a hit for me, and I just repeated the words it gave. If nothing else, it does show that, some of these metal artists put a lot of thought and effort into putting the music together. Even if you don't like the final product that much, I can appreciate the time and mental energy they're investing to do it.
All right. I am still on appearance, and we're going to talk about one that was part of, it was kind of a standard issue dress code, and it kind of really took off with Metallica, the leather and denim. Not that this wasn't a new thing, obviously new wave of British heavy metal, which Metallica were very influenced by, appearance and musically. But this ended up becoming even bands like Anthrax, the leather and the denim.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Testament, everybody's got their leather jackets on. And then you get to the denim. I mean, Blessed, this album rules. This is Destined for Extinction by Blessed Death. I mean, these guys look like they're dime bag entrepreneurs selling the drugs to the kids on the schoolyard. They got their leathers on, their ripped, dirty ass jeans, and they look like the metal I want to listen to. You know what I mean? And this whole, granted, Anthrax for this photo shoot was down in the leather, but it was an album later. They're switching the leather and denim for Bermuda shorts and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle icons taped to or stuck to their Jackson Flying V guitars.
And their skateboards.
Yep. But, thrash metal in particular, they had a look. The white high tops, the ripped denim jeans, a band shirt with the leather jacket. It was a coat of arms, their armor. And it's still to this day, bands popping up now. It's the dress code. It's just part of the dress code. And, Metallica showed the world that you didn't need a stage get up to get up on. Looks like you just wandered off the bus, got on stage. It's kind of the Motorhead vibe a little bit too. I mean, they were friends and, fellow road dogs with Lemmy and crew. Crawl up on stage and play big ass arenas, and people were listening to the music and not giving a shit what the band looked like. But that became its own look in its own self. So the anti-image became an image, and it became a uniform. It became a staple in the way not only just thrash metal, but death metal bands, not so much power metal bands. We're going to get to that here in my next poll around here. They had their own uniforms, and you look at bands like Halloween, for instance. They have stage outfits. They actually have fashion people that style their leathers. So it's like there's different factions within metal as well. But obviously, most of us kind of gravitated towards the simple everyman outfit, and it's still to this day I'm still wearing it. So, although I've never owned a leather coat, I never thought I could pull off a leather coat. I don't know, just never couldn't afford it. But yeah, Rick,
all those years of Happy Days and the fonts never did it for you.
Oh, dude, I loved Happy Days. Fucking loved Happy Days. Yeah,
I think with everything with metal, there's always the opposite side of it, right? Like with power metal, there's the bright side, the bright colors. Probably a little more accepted there, that's the Sabaton fans. But I think with a lot of metal, like the upside down cross thing, it's one of those things that's a little overused. It's one of those things where, like, how do we quickly go from 0 to 60 with evil? I know, let's do this thing and invert that. But one area I don't see this too much, which kind of makes sense because it has a lot of Christian undertones, and it's doom metal. And jumping into some of the tropes with doom metal, like the cross, it's a big thing. I think it has a lot to do with the afterlife and just everything involved with the tropes with the church. So I pulled this right here. So that's a classic, and I think this is the first one with vinyl actually. So Born Too Late. And I've always dug that logo, and
cool,
this is one where
iconic logo, iconic,
yeah, they didn't need that cross there, but if you remove it, it looks kind of weird.
It's barren, yeah,
it's just this big gap.
Yeah. So
I guess there was a purpose behind it too at the same time. But classic, but at the same time, I'm like, come on, Testament's Legacy of Death had the big window. You guys couldn't just take that thing and just tell the photocopier guy to just make that thing larger, just so we can see.
I have always wondered why the window is so small. It's so weird.
So, a lot of the stuff that we see with doom metal and the religious undertones involves, the devil and saints, and there's a lot of statues. Officium Trist, had this with the tombstones. There's a lot of that kind of imagery kind of thrown all throughout. Canon Mass does it. Ancient Dreams has the big, the painting and the depictions of the angels, and it just and heaven, and all that stuff. Here's another band called In Grief. With the statue. We have the saints and the angels and all that. So that's a thing that you kind of expect, especially with the more common traditional kind of epic doom side of things. Phil Swanson's band, Vestal Claret. It's kind of another one. Here we see, I don't know, like I feel like here, like the devil is trying to throw him in the water. The water's fine. What are you looking at? It's just, it's going to be okay. It's only like, it's not that deep. Cool band. This one has Justin DeTore in it. Also, so people don't know, Dream Unending, a bunch of other projects, but cool stuff. But I think for Dark on Tropes, this is one that I feel like couldn't be left out just because it's just so prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what to see. And Alan, I know you pointed this several times. With a lot of these bands, it's like I started with saying I don't know if it started with Saint Vitus, but a lot of these bands have the sort of title. It's got you got the Cardinal's Folly, right? You got
Yes, Reverend Bizarre.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of those,
and it just kind of becomes like a running thing with a lot of these bands. Here's a good one, Lucifer's Children, which is it kind of stands apart. This was actually called Devil Worship, so it doesn't have the Christian stuff you usually see, but good stuff. This is one of the first releases. But if you're exploring doom, one of my favorites going on right now is Early Moods. They just hit the spot for me.
That's a great band. Yep. Frank, I don't know if he's still in the chat, but yeah, Frank loves that band. Early Moods.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yep, feels like it should be pretty soon. It's about the right time.
All right.
Yep.
Alan.
Yeah. Reverend Bizarre. There's a Lord Vicar. There's it really is. You just pick religious title.
Count Raven.
Count. Yep. And just stick some other thing onto it. All right, Marty. You said you're getting ready for some power metal, so I'm going to kind of set this up, and then you can take the ball and run with it more. There was a thing among power metal bands, at least in like mid 90s, somewhere into the early 2000s, and maybe it still happens, where it seems like every single one of them had to have a song titled Wings of fill in the blank. And it was just something that would keep popping up and really started to irk me over the years. It's like, please God, do not let the next power metal album I buy have a song called Wings of something on it. And it just keeps coming up. Wings of goes pretty far back in metal. You have Judas Priest's second album said Wings of Destiny. In the 80s, you have Riot's Thundersteel has Wings of Eagles. One I picked here is a random example. Again, more from that late 90s time frame. Looking for
Wings of Liminal Goat Voids.
We're straying a little close to that, but no, we'll stay out of that. There's one on this album somewhere. Yeah, here. Gamma Rays, Power Plants. You have a Wings of Destiny late in the track list. And over the years, it became one of those just kind of warning signs for me that, okay, here's a band that... come on, you're not even trying to come up with an original song title. Wings of Life, Wings of Freedom, Wings of Love, Wings of Flower, Wings of Flight, Wings of Danger. So many, and it really does seem to gravitate more towards power metal bands that latch onto the wings of something, and they just fly with it.
Yes.
I don't know why. What have we got?
They just fly with it. I was commenting at your punny.
Oh, okay. I thought Mike had beat me to the punch.
No.
Perhaps, maybe. But yeah, Wings of Tomorrow, Wings of Yesterday. It seems to just be one of those generic phrases that you can tack almost any word onto the ending of and come up with something that could, in theory, be a song title. But it got overused there for a while. So... yeah, power metal definitely got in a bit of a Wings of rut for a period of time. Maybe they've shaken that off over the years. but there's a lot of those tracks out there for sure. All right, Marty. Now, what direction are you going in here with power metal?
Power metal has its look, and there are varying degrees of the look, and usually it's well groomed. They use hair products. They use hair care products. Their hair's flowing, and they cut the split ends, so it's all healthy. But there's also a contingent of the power metal world that takes the whole fantastical realm to new realms. And that would be, bands like, Glory Hammer, where the one of the, no, I wouldn't say one of the first, but they're definitely the low rent Marvel's Universe get up and ran with it. And you know what? Even though this music is very pop derived in a metal context, it's catchy, it's fun. And of course it carried on to the Angus McSix realm where, old Angus there, he's become even more like an Oscar statue. He's donned the golden armor and the capes. And you got Skeletor there, which is Seb from Orden Ogan, who was the main songwriter for all this stuff. The architect of the pop / techno / power metal sensation that is Angus McSix. New album, by the way. Report, the new album rules. I love it. Maybe talk about that later on an episode of the show. And then, of course, instead of the superhero thing, you've got the LARPing / Middle Earth contingent. This is an artist's rendition of the band Twilight Force. And the artist's rendition is pretty spot on because, yes, they all do dress up like this. They've got the cloaks, the garments, the elf ears, the masks, the weaponry, and this is their second album, Heroes of Mighty Magic. I think it's their second. They rule. They're a very technical power metal band. I'm kind of nervous at what the new one's going to be like. I don't think it's going to be as good as the last one, but yeah. So basically, check your hatred for cheese at the door if you're going to enter into a genre like this. You're going to go into it and you're going to think, you know what? I'm not going to take myself so seriously. Sometimes it's fun to have fun, right, Alan? And
sometimes it is. You got to have the music to back it up.
Sometimes you got to have that sort of music to back it up. And this music is definitely it, both visually and musically, I think. And I am glad I got over my fear of liking something that wasn't cultish or grim or frostbitten or evil or fast. It's a whole nother realm opened up, and it's fun, and it's super talented, endlessly talented. Yeah. Rick.
You can't be angry all the time. I think that's why sometimes you need something a little bright. For brighten up your day.
Sometimes you win $5 on a scratch-off lottery ticket. That's all I'm going to say. Sometimes you turn right back in the store and go buy yourself a couple 40s of Steel Reserve, and get happier. It's just there's levels. There's levels.
I'm starting to realize that as I get older too. It's like I just want to be happy.
That is the goal.
Speaking of which,
and it's sometimes very elusive.
I'll make a segue to the power metal kind of thing, and moving to this particular topic that Alan knows I'm very aware of, and it's just this trope that went around for a while. Kind of glad it kind of died off, although there's one particular reason. Album kind of brought it back, but what's up with those checkerboards?
Yep.
It's like it was all over the place. A lot of rock albums also used it. Triumph, there's just a couple bands that kind of went and decided that we need checkerboards and everything. Battalions of Fear was one. I could have pulled more, but I'm like, you know what? I'm still going to make this a gigantic stream of checkerboard consciousness.
I just showed that album last week, was it? Or week before?
It's just like, why? Yeah, the whole thing is just weird. I just kind of try to figure out what's going on.
Brian Rotten PM, thank you so much for the super chat, and I have y'all to blame for enjoying power metal now. Thanks. You know what? You're welcome, and enjoy it. God damn it. I'm glad we could be the catalyst.
Frederick Vulture did a good chessboard covered, and you would be correct. This is one of those times where I didn't mind it at all. You know, they got like this really works for that trope of metal right here, and they kind of expanded on it, because if you will, so kind of worked in their case. And so I want to thank Alan properly for this Pretty Angels by Stranger. They talk about it, which also kind of brought it out. It was a fun listen. The only thing about it was that this cover does not reveal how it actually sounds.
No, it does not.
Whatsoever. Was just the only thing. But you know, once you get in and you know, and you're folding laundry to it, it's actually not too bad. But yeah, so I don't know if anybody has an explanation. If you're one of those artists that was doing this kind of thing at the time, what was in your headspace when the checkerboard thing was hot for a good decade or two?
The only thing I've thought of, because you brought that up, and I think you touched on it in your video recently where you were talking about that, Rick. I think you're right that it is a visual item that tended to show up on bands that wanted to come across as a little smart. And not necessarily like full on prog, but they at least wanted to have like a little bit of like an intellectual air about them. And chess, you know, is kind of one of those easy visualizations of, you know, oh, somebody's super smart. Well, they're probably good at chess. There's a stereotype image there, because you can't just draw like giant brain. I mean, Rush beat you to that in like 1978 or something.
It was that, or the
naked guy
eyeballs,
walking
right?
around on it.
It's like we did.
So that's all I could think of, is that maybe it was meant to be.
Like we did the naked man showing us behind, the eyeball, the brain. Like, what's left? I know. The checkerboards.
Always chess, never checkers, right, Falafel? So maybe that is something that it was meant to be, you know, for bands that were like, you know, we're a cut above the standard rock or, you know, metal band.
And you know, and I've done some visual art myself, and like drawing checkerboards is not fun. Like, you know, it's very symmetrical, and everything's got to be sort of, you know, but it's just, I don't know. For me, it kind of sucks. But you know, that was the thing that kind of was just a kind of a trend, and I just never knew the fascination behind it.
Yep. Total Underground, yes, that's one of my favorite examples of the checkerboard cover. There's even a lot of those, like, you know, monochrome 7-inch singles I talked about earlier that have checkerboard themes. I've sent Rick's pictures of them from time to time over the years. It's like, here's a band, Nightwatch. No one's ever heard of them, but they had a checkerboard picture sleeve.
All right, Alan.
All right. Someone mentioned this in the chat. It may have been Giant Proof. It's like, oh, yeah, that is a really good one. Let's work it in if we've got time. And it kind of continues Marty's power metal theme here. A lot of, and it's not related only to power metal, but it is a genre where it's most prevalent. Are bands that not only want to create concept albums, but they want to create like their own fantasy land, so that they're not just singing random tales about knights, dragons, swords, etc. It's like, oh no, we're telling you, you know, the you know, myth, the legend of this land, which, you know, is always like their own kind of schlocky C grade Tolkien knockoff wannabe fantasy realm. Yeah, Avantage is the example I just went and pulled off the shelf to highlight this. You know, Rhapsody, I think, is the one that was mentioned in the chat. But yeah, you know, these bands, they don't just sing about the fantasy stuff. Oh, no. All the songs are conceptually linked. They're all taking place in the same land. And the lands almost always have these horribly generic names of, you know, the realm of Magica or the realm of Legendary. It's like, you couldn't come up with something more unique than Magica for the magical kingdom. Oh, well, ours is called Lorengard. You just copied that from Tolkien and stuck guard on the end. Most of them are not that great. A lot of them go to great detail, though. Stormkeep, you know, comes with a map showing the position of all these made-up lands they sing about.
The fact that they stuffed that thing in the CD and just it folds out to this ridiculous thing, that's an accomplishment in of itself.
Yes, it's nuts. Rhapsody has a story that goes across like what their first 5 albums or something. It's the never-ending story of power metal. Samat with the Avantasia project, he brought in different vocalists to do the vocals for every character in his exhaustingly long power metal story. I made the mistake of sitting and trying to read through this freaking booklet when I bought this. I like the album, I like the music, but you've got song lyrics and exposition describing it all, and it goes on and on and on.
And you need a magnifying glass to be able to read it.
And on. And yes, this is a big part of the reason I am blind. I've tried reading these things. And on and on and on and on. We finally get a picture to break it up a little bit. And on. I mean, good Lord. And this is part 1 of a 2-part album saga. There's another 70-minute or so CD built the same way. The music is great. It's really cool having the vocalists come in to do, like Kai Hansen's the voice of, he's not the troll. I think he's something like, the gnome of time or something ridiculous. It works kind of cool, but the story is tripe. It is just the schlockiest dime store paperback fantasy crud you could possibly slap together. It's just not necessary. I almost wish they had just sung about more generic fantasy sword things than trying to splice it together. You're not J.R.R. Tolkien. You're not Michael Moorcock. It doesn't work. But it's one of those things that, yes, every role-playing D&D dice toting person out there, at some point they have to create their own realm with its own history, and some people go really far down that rabbit hole, their own languages and all their special magical items and trinkets of myth and legend, and some of them turn them into albums. Again, musically pretty cool. The Avantasia story is not good. However, I don't recommend spending the time to try to decipher it. Not necessary. You can just put the albums on and enjoy
I was
them.
wondering about those people that write like these entire Star Trek, Star Wars novels, like that outside of the canon stuff. I'm like how much time do you got? Like, you must really.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of getting into the fan fiction universe, which is good griefs. The amount of time some people put into that. The biggest culprit for that is also one of the strangest. There's a fan fiction series. It's not turned into music yet, but somebody has written a fan fiction story for My Little Pony that is something like 112,000 pages total. I may be wrong on the number, but it's an insane, truly insane volume of stuff. All about the My Little Pony universe. I'm just going to leave it at that and pass it over to Muffy.
Yeah, I don't know what to say.
What can
That's
you
kind
say?
of amazing, actually.
It's. I'll look up some of the stats on it, and we'll get back to that. But Marty can move this thing forward before I bog us down in My Little Pony details. Go ahead, Marty.
All right. Well, I'm going to dub this segment of the evening as colored pencil metal. Hear me out.
That's a genre,
Colored pencil metal. Where do you think I'm getting this from here? The covers, colored pencil. You got Juice Newton being burned alive by orange, red, and yellow colored pencils.
She wasn't Angel of the Morning in that one.
No, she was not. But they weren't done yet. We got more colored pencil artwork here in the form of Night on Brocken's American release, the first pressing of the American. This is not the first pressing of the CD. And then, we'll save that one for last. Shadows of Past, colored pencil metal by Sentence, the second Sentence pull of the night. This one's kind of cool, but there's some weird perspectives and there's some wrong type of stuff going on here.
Does your copy have the spine? It's the shadow of the past, but then the front's the shadow of past.
Yeah, it's a shadow of the past on the
Alright.
spine. It's a
Artistic
reissue.
mistake.
And then the end boss of the colored pencil metal would be EXE was stricken by might. You got Fangface here from Gamma Ray. He made this is his poor brother who's down on his luck, addicted to meth, on the streets, trying to make money to make ends meet. But he ended up on this EXE stricken by might thing in all of his colored pencil glory. So yeah, there was the 80s in particular was a big contingent of bad metal covers. This should have been in the bad metal cover section, but yeah, colored pencils were a thing. Yeah, I'm sure it probably wasn't colored pencils, but it has a colored pencil look to me anyway. I used to fuck around with some colored pencils back in the day, and you know, it leaves a mark on you for sure. Colored pencil metal, Rick.
But Rick, before Rick can pull us out of the hole I'm about to dig.
Damn, man, I didn't pull anything from the colored pencil realm.
Yeah, but here's the breakdown of what I was mentioning. Yes, it's a fan fiction series called Fallout Equestria. It is a post-apocalyptic My Little Pony Friendship is Magic fan fiction novel based on the Fallout video game series. It was originally published by a anonymous user. Gee, imagine that. They didn't want credit for it. Is split into 5 volumes totaling 620,000 words across more than 2,000 pages.
It's not the only thing. It's not the only thing. There's Bigfoot art too, or Bigfoot literature, which is all like pornographic people, you know, women having sex with Bigfoot. There's what else is there?
Yeah.
Twilight fan fiction, a bunch of and all that stuff. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, I have heard. I don't know if the Equestria series is this, but I know some of the My Little Pony fan fiction stuff. Yeah, it's apparently very dark and twisted with like mass genocide of ponies, you know, and like gruesome detail of them being put through a glue factory and rendered down and stuff. And it's just like, good Lord. Yeah.
I didn't know
how much time do you people have, and what happened to you as children? I don't know.
There's this Harriet Henderson's off branch of the furries I didn't know about. Like,
this is true, Josh. Rule 34 of the internet. If it exists, there's porn of it. Exactly. Yeah.
What series was it that has that? Joke it. It might have been something as simple as Family Guy, but I'm thinking it's something more obscure where, yeah, there's a scene of like, you know, the scientist like introducing like, you know, this amazing new invention that, you know, can revolutionize and solve, you know, world peace and all this stuff. And some guy in the back just raises his hand. He's like, "Can I fuck it?" And the scientist just looks at him and is like, "Huh?" He's like, "Can I put my dick into it?" And the guy's like, "Well, no." And everybody in the room just gets up and walks out.
got right to the punch. That's for sure.
Yep. It was not a sex bot. They were not interested.
Yeah, you had me a Fallout because I love that game. But the moment you went to ponies, I was like, ah.
Yeah.
Oh, went the window.
Apparently it meshes the two for 2,000 pages.
Common trope in metal, and I think that this is quite fitting for what it is. War, depictions of war.
What's it good for?
It's exactly. Ask the band.
Absolutely nothing. Oh, say it again. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how much death metal we brought up tonight, but you know, obviously, you know, Realm of Chaos. You know, you could bring up any bolt thrower, basically. Like, you know, they kind of cover.
I had the war topic too. I pulled for victory.
Oh, okay. I would love to see your particular pulls for that. Obviously, we've seen one just now. Yeah, and he got the swords version of it too, right? Like, so that's so they make sure they got all bases covered. I'm a little excited because Decibel announced and you guys did a whole, discography on this band, and obviously they're one that you can't forget about. And so pre-order for the book out now.
Papa Smurf is ripped on that cover, I tell you.
Yeah.
Look how blue
He's
he
taking
is.
whatever Bane from Batman's having.
Wonder if
Gargamel's
Smurf's
going to
blood-
rue the day he fucked with them.
I wonder if Smurf blood is red or if it's blue.
Oh no. Speaking of blue, I do have something.
Do y'all remember the one episode where the Smurfs turn rabid and purple? I am not making this up. This sounds like something I'm making up, and I've made up a lot
Was
of
this
stuff.
on a Smurf porn site? That,
This is not a no. This is not
His
a
gorged penis
Smurfs.
purple.
this is not a fan fiction like dark Smurf thing. No. There was one episode of Smurfs.
Dark smurfing.
Zachary says
Smurfing around
scary.
with Professor Steele.
in that early 80s Saturday morning cartoon series. Yes, I mean, which obviously is very typical Saturday morning. They had one episode during which something happens. Like one of the Smurfs, gets like a virus, and it turns purple, and it's basically like rabbit, and it like bites another Smurf, and that Smurf starts to like freak out, and pretty soon it turns purple and is acting all rabid and crazy and bites another Smurf. And I mean, it continues until like every single Smurf is, rabid except for one of them. It may be like, I don't know, Brainy Smurf or something. It's like the last one left that has to save them all. It's really weird for an episode of Smurfs. I remember seeing it as a kid multiple times and being really freaked out that they don't actually show the Smurfs attack, and they'd always kind of like cut away, but then they'd cut back, like, the Smurf's like holding his arms like, ow, why'd you bite me? And his arm is like throbbing and everything. And then a minute or two later, it's like doing its own rabid transformation. It's almost like, Dawn of the Dead stuck into Smurf form in a 30-minute cartoon episode.
This isn't
Really
this isn't like a
kind of-
Berenstein effect, right? Where like it was actually a Snorks episode.
It was a messed up episode, and I seem to be the only person that wasn't able to completely mentally block it. Anybody in the chat remember this episode of Smurfs? I can't be the only person who's aware.
I
of
watched a lot of Smurfs back in the day, and I will say a little bit of a Smurfland magic that entered the real world that I experienced. My mom would buy me on occasion a Smurfberry Crunch. I would eat a couple bowls of it. The next day, my poop would be green and blue.
I just remember once I hit
a miracle.
Once I hit puberty, I was like, my mind started going other places. I'm like, why is there only one Smurfette? Like, is this safe? Like, is this a good thing for the village? But that's after I show this last one, I'm gonna have to just scour eBay for the Smurf box set and validate this. But anyway,
I want to know what kind of Smurf stuff you're looking.
Yes, I'm
war depictions right here. Like, but here they're going right into this cathedral or whatever. So I was talking doom metal earlier, so I thought I just kind of tied up the loose ends with this.
Tell you what, the lead singer of that band, Pete, he hung out with him a few times back in the day. He was a super nice dude. Super nice dude. Yeah.
So are they done or what? Like they
haven't done anything in ages. I have no idea.
I got this and two CDs that came after this. But man, yeah, this thing right here. Excellent.
All right. Was that it for you,
Yep.
Rick?
I could pull war all day, like just so much of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I'll show the ones that I pulled for war too. Of course, 1914.
Yep.
A lot of focus on World War I here. And of course, Sabaton. I mean, come on. It's a thing. And, I don't have any of that Cannon Faber or whatever the heck that band is called, but they're another World War I based band. They all wear masks or period piece clothing. Again, it's anything that works for someone, you can guarantee you're going to spring up 4 or 5 other bands that try to do the same thing. Alan is over here feverishly looking for his
I found
Smurf
it.
fantasy. You found it?
No, it's here. Is it my turn? Because we're doing this. Hold off on heavy metal. No, it's right here. It's right here. The Purple Smurfs.
Huh.
And scrolling. It's episode 24 from the first season of the Smurfs cartoon. Original air date on Halloween 1981. That probably didn't help that they put it on Halloween. There's a synopsis. If I scroll down here a little bit, all the Smurfs in the episode are named. Synopsis: when the purple fly bites Lazy Smurf, he becomes purple and is biting the other Smurfs to get that disease as well. So the remaining Smurfs must find the cure to stop the purple Smurfs. Waking up upon a bright new day, Papa Smurf calls all his little Smurfs together to start work on the bridge. As work commences, Lazy decides, I'm sorry, I'm making a Smurfs episode. But we're doing this because no one else seems to know it but me.
It made an impression on young Mr. Coulson, I think.
Lazy decides he will take a little nap until he comes face to face with Papa Smurf, who tells him to get back to work now like everybody else. Hefty Smurf, from the gully of the river below the bridge, asks Papa Smurf to hand him a shovel, which he does until he finds out it's been covered in goo. Greedy Smurf comes along to tell Papa Smurf that it's his shovel and pulls it away from Papa Smurf's sticky hands. Smurfette calls Papa Smurf's attention of her picking up the color for painting the bridge, but Papa Smurf is too busy seeing Brainy, not watching where he's swinging his axe to chop wood, and instead ends up cutting down the rope holding the bridge up, sending it crashing down to the gully. When Papa Smurf is ready to explode, he walks off into the forest, only to trip over Lazy, who found himself a nice place to sleep. Papa Smurf angrily tells Lazy to go into the forest and get logs and move it, which Lazy does. And here we see the transition. You can see here's Lazy Smurf before he gets bitten. Here he is right after he gets bitten. And then you can see where he's starting to become kind of feral, like, zombie Smurf. All right. So, I mean, shit gets dark here.
They couldn't actually use the word meth during that period. They had to use something in other ways.
Right. He finds himself pestered by a purple fly, annoyingly circles around him laughing. Lazy chases the fly into the forest until he trips. When he gets up, he doesn't notice the purple fly has secretly flown around him and is now behind him, looking at and zooming towards his tail. Lazy yelps in pain and looks around to see his tail is now throbbing. See, I was exactly right. Then suddenly Lazy turns purple. His mind goes blank as he now barks, nap, 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 and hops off into the forest. This is fucked up, man. Meanwhile,
everybody, for more gripping metal content, go check out Radical Research.
Thralls of Metal is doing something better than this right now. But yeah, I mean, apparently it's maybe Papa Smurf that has to save them. Yet another day, Papa passes. Papa Smurf is now frustrated because nothing he has tried work, and now up to 17 Smurfs have been infected with the purple disease. I mean, it's playing out like that movie with the rabid monkeys that it's got Dustin Hoffman in it, virus or epidemic something. Anyway, yeah, I'm not crazy here again. Just they've got screenshots of all the purple Smurfs going mad and going after the other Smurfs. This is a thing, and I am gobsmacked that nobody here was aware of it but me.
You never know what you'll uncover on Metallurgy.
There you go. It's a real thing. Is it my turn?
Yeah,
okay.
It is.
Sure. Well, there you go. See, it's real. A fun trend going back to the fashion side of heavy metal is in the early 80s, maybe extending to the mid 80s, you tended to see many bands wearing Japanese themed clothing, but not like kimonos and stuff. Just lots of shirts with sometimes British flags, but very often Japanese flags. And there was a lot of Oriental imagery worked in. I picked Tokyo Blade, right there in the name. You had part of this. Lots of bands that focused on samurai. Here's another example of the sword thing from earlier, but this time it's a samurai sword playing into the image. Multiple bands did songs called Tokyo Rose. There were several bands named Tokyo Rose. And so there was this kind of fascination with Japanese culture. And that was something you saw in other aspects of 80s pop culture as well. Japan became sort of an economic superpower there when other countries, the UK and the US, went through recessions in the early 80s. And Japan seemed to just, have all this money with, all these big tech companies doing huge things. And so, yeah, it was not unusual at all to see lots of bands have some type of, clothing with Japanese insignias on it. This picture shows off another trend that existed at the same time, the stripy pants. which seemed to be more of a British metal fashion
Yeah.
thing. We've all seen the pictures of like Bruce Dickinson and stuff, but lots of bands went for those stripy trousers. I am very proud to say I don't think many American metal bands picked up the stripy trouser look.
The guy in the middle is like wearing flesh-colored pants, which I don't think it's working really well for that photo.
Yeah, the salmon-colored pants that dude's got. You are correct, Rick. That is a fashion faux pas there for sure. But yes, you've got both you got the picture shows off multiple things. You've got the British flag shirt, the Japanese flag shirt, and the stripy pants and the samurai sword on a band, prominently using the Japanese flag imagery and naming themselves Tokyo Blade. So, yes, that Japanese imagery was a big thing in heavy metal circles for several years there. But like I said, it was also popularized across all kinds of cultural medium in that early to mid 80s span. When we all went through that whole ninja phase somewhere in the mid 80s where throwing stars were the coolest thing ever, and you had ninja shows popping up all over the place.
I had a copy of American Ninja. I never went back. It was just, yeah.
Yep. I think the one I saw as a kid was a series on TV, network TV called, it was something like The Master. It was kind of a Karate Kid type, situation.
It was Beverly Hills Ninja, but do we count that one?
I don't know. I'll think about that while we pass over to Marty, and I want to read the rest of the synopsis of this Smurf thing, but I'll read the rest of it off camera. I've made my point. It was a real thing and kind of a scary episode for like an elementary school kid.
Jeff is on the hunt for a purple Smurf shirt for you. He says he's on it. He's looking for it right now.
Anything possible. I mean, you got a Randy shirt on right now. Like anything
Thanks to Jeff, apparently.
Jeff's the one who found this online and sent me the link. He's like, dude, just saying. I'm just like, 10 minutes later, I was ordering it. So, Jeff, if you find the purple Smurf shirt, give me a holler.
Everybody wish Jeff a happy 60th birthday. Tomorrow night, we're having a little shindig over on Gas Masks and Hand Grenades, celebrating the old fart. And awesome. Happy birthday, man. And I already mentioned the Dan Swano interview earlier in the show, but you want a 3-hour long Dan Swano interview, go check it out. It's awesome. He did an amazing job. Great conversation.
Jeff does a good job on everything. I've made it almost through part 1 of his deep dive on the Church, great Australian rock band. Got like 9 more hours to go, but I will try to get through it all given time. It's been good listening when grading papers and stuff lately. So nice. Big cheers and happy birthday to Jeff.
Absolutely.
All right, Marty, it's your turn, and I want to get back to this purple Smurf thing.
This is my last one for the night, and thankfully someone mentioned it in the chat. And, getting back to literature, it's another thing that's often influences metal, and one that instantly comes to mind is summoning. Let mortal heroes sing your fame. Obviously, Summoning is one of those bands that base their entire aesthetic and lyrical concepts on J.R.R. Tolkien's, and they are one of the bands out there that does it very well. The style that they play, that plotting, almost dungeon synth tinged black metal style, is very epic, very triumphant, and very much revels in the atmosphere set forth by Tolkien in the books. Reading the books, it gives you the same kind of vibe that Summoning is laying down musically. They somehow captured it very well with their sound and what they did with it. And they even have songs later on in their catalog in complete orc language. So that's super cool. I mean, it's super nerdy, and I'm completely down with that. You're not hearing, like Beyonce writing an album about the Odyssey.
Hey, Bebe wrote an album, country music, and won awards for it. So you just steer that hate mobile somewhere else. Do not.
I'm not saying hate. I just don't see the Odyssey.
I'm just saying
Homer's classic.
She's expanding her artistic boundaries, man. If you want to pick a random pop example, I get it. But you dump that hate rate over there on Taylor Swift. Nobody misses with Queen Bey. Just say
right on. Okay, cool. And it looks like Jeff found you a purple Smurf tee. Excellent.
Is that how it was described on the page?
Yeah.
Jeff, you've got my number. You can text it right over. We'll take a look at it.
Rick.
All right, since we're getting to the, I guess, tail end of all this, pulled a few random ones, but here's
Wait,
a couple
was
where...
tail-ended joke about the Smurf thing because they all got bit in the tails?
Oh no, we can
Did you
keep
just
going
do
with
that to me.
It's the My Little Pony one. It was a little like, all right, maybe we can cut the line there. Stuff that I think that screams metal in its own way. I think because it's just so visceral in of itself. Go back to the 80s, you know, like sadistic execution. It's one. You look at this thing, and there is no doubt you're not going to confuse what genre this is.
There's a difference between paintings and colored pencil. That's all I'm saying. That's why there's colored pencil metal, and then there's that, which
I didn't
is not
think I
colored
had
pencil.
a colored pencil one.
That isn't. I'm just saying that there you can tell there's a, you know, Rock's or Chris Hades' artwork is far more detailed and awesome. Anyway.
Around that same period, like these bands were really like pushing that envelope. Like we want to be evil, you know. And this is a band I wish were a little. They stayed in the evil side, and they didn't. But this was an interesting period for Sepultura. At the same time,
Same color scheme.
It's a color scheme. The airbrush look,
Yeah.
you know, was the thing. You know, it's just like after schizophrenia, they kind of just, you know, they kind of lost that. Another one here. Oh, okay. So speaking of tropes and metal, you know, a lot of the things that we put in these albums just happen to become tropes or, you know, a part of it. But what if you're directly doing it on purpose, you know, just because it's, you know, so thank you to Dave Metal Overkill for sending this my way, but iconic, you know, Trick or Treat, the entire movie was hitting on all that tropes of, you know, kind of what was going on. It came out at the right time. I think had they waited another year or two to make this movie, it wouldn't have had that same impact. You know, it was so you know, Eugene Simmons was brought up tonight, so there he is again pointing at himself, just in case you missed it. Like,
Yeah.
look at how clean.
Yeah.
Sammy Kerr, the guy who what was his name? He passed away. Another thing with metal is that as far as visual aesthetic, the stark black and white thing, which is huge. Like, you know, we're not talking about just Mark Riddick. You know, like he kind of made that a really big thing with particularly death metal, I think in particular. But there's plenty of examples where there's a good use of it. I got this old like first Witch Vomit here, you know, which kind of makes good use of it. There's something about black and white I think that really works. Sometimes color can kind of take away from the visceralness of it at the same time. It can look a little too comic booky for what it is. It still kind of does. Chris Moyan's another one, yeah, from the very early days. Black metal also works. Elegiac, you know, there's a little dash of red there, but you know, for the most part, it's mostly black and white. I have a ton of these. I could pull like 1,000 black one man bedroom black metal kind of stuff too, but you know, it's a really good project. Despondent Moon from the UK, really good. If I would say, yeah, go explore Black Celeste, I kind of prefer this. You know, it just
that stuff is really good. I like that stuff too.
It's a really good.
I bought a bunch of this stuff digitally, and I listened to all of it once, and because it's digital, I never listened to it. I just don't know why I even waste money on that stuff.
If you find it around, like it's really good. I got mine from His Wounds.
Yeah, that's where I got it from, the His Wounds site. They were having a name your price type of thing. I'm like, all right.
I ordered enough just to make the shipping worth it.
Yeah.
Here's a cool one. It's Cyanide, just little box set with all the demos and stuff, and you know, and but another example where like how visceral and black and white really works, you know. So it's kind of a thing that you didn't see too much around in the 80s, and you know, in the early years of metal. It kind of started showing up in the 90s, you know. It started really kind of taken form, and it just kind of made this return. And by then, I was a bit of a comic book nerd, so I love that pen and ink stuff that was going on. The actual sleeves themselves are not like that. It's just the it's all color, but it's just the outer. But it's just a cool use that they could have went color with this just as easily, but they decided to keep it like this. So I'm glad they did. But yeah.
All right, Ellen.
All right. So Jeff was not lying. He's found a purple Smurf, angry Smurf yelling nap, and even says beware the biting Smurf at the bottom. It's in the cart, Jeff. Next time I order, it will be part of the purchase. The story ends really messed up too. Papa Smurf ends up as like the spoiler alert. Just saying, if you want to watch this on YouTube later, check out, just navigate away from now. You can come back and watch the end of the stream later. But yeah, every Smurf is infected. The show ends with Papa Smurf being surrounded by 100 angry purple Smurfs. He's found a cure in his lab, so he's trying to make enough of this magic pollen that will cure them. But the other Smurfs break into his lab and burn the thing down, destroying all of the pollen and biting Papa Smurf in the process. So he's laying there on the ground, realizing the Smurfs are completely lost. The only thing that saves them is the explosion in his laboratory releases a lot of the pollen into the air so that all the Smurfs are converted back to blue Smurfs at once. You're this far from every Smurf being completely beyond salvation. That's dark crap for a 1981 cartoon. Just saying.
Yeah.
We'll end with this one.
Blue poop, Smurfberry Crunch. Didn't turn purple, it turned blue. A little green too.
We are not on the same page right now when it comes to Smurfs, my friend. We're just not. I'm over here shaking. I'm over here in a cold sweat, because of childhood trauma. You're in a cold sweat from trying to pinch out a multicolored rainbow loaf.
Chase the rainbow. Hey, thanks, Lee.
Lee, thank you. My last trend for the night. You went through that phase at the turn of the century where everyone was trying to do CGI cover art. And you ended up with some really messed up CGI cover art over time. Sometimes it worked out well. This is one of Travis Smith's covers for the band November. And this one's not too bad. Kind of cool. I can dig it. But yeah, there's so much bad CGI art from this era where people were getting that Windows 95 sweet paint program and figure hey, we can build any kind of crazy image we want. And a lot of people did start, of course, ripping off Travis's style with, superimposing different images on top of each other. And again, if done well, you can get some really cool artwork from this. Travis has a lot of great pieces. When done badly, it not only looks terrible, it also terribly dates the record. You can look at these and be like, yeah, that must have come out about 2002, maybe 2003, because that's the only time it looked that wretched. Kudos to metal artists for trying to embrace that kind of new look. Yeah, hey, it was new millennium. We were supposed to have all those cool new things and be starting a new chapter, but that didn't pan out well for many bands who attempted to work with that style of art at that time. And it's funny because now we're kind of seeing that cycle come back around with the AI slop that's being used by some bands. And once again, AI, wave of the future, it's going to revolutionize everything. But then you look at some of their album covers, it's just like, good Lord, that looks terrible. Why? What made you?
It didn't age very well.
I mean, at best, your mentality is, well, okay, I'm saving money by not paying an artist. How's that going to work out when we stop paying you to listen to your music because we can just make our own? They're not thinking it through. But you look at it, it's just like, okay, if you tried it, that's one thing. But you should have looked at this final image and realized, oof, let's just scrap this and get somebody to do nice art, good art for us, instead of that. So yeah, we're kind of right back where we were 26 years ago, with computers generating artwork that isn't nearly as good looking as the hype around the software or the program would make you think. I'll end on that one. Marty, what you want to wrap up with?
I'm done. I'm out of bullets. And
Yeah,
with
that's
that,
right. I'm sorry. That was your last one. Yep. So I was a little engrossed in the Smurf nonfiction because it's a real episode.
Give me a second. The one more quick.
Yep.
Nope,
Let Rick
if
have
Rick's
his
got
one more.
Yep. If Rick's got one last one, absolutely. I cannot believe it's not us. The chat for our show knows everything. We can mention any obscure song title, TV show, movie, book reference, people, art piece. I am the only person that knew the Purple Smurf episode. Y'all just got some repressed issues going on. It's in the back of your brain somewhere, crammed like over here next to this lobe. You go to therapy and talk it out, and you'll remember the trauma and terror you felt watching that 24 minutes of those Smurfs turn purple. It's okay to let it out. I am going to face my fear by buying this shirt and wearing it. Probably won't be here for the next episode of Metallurgy, but yep, we're going to stare this one down and laugh. And it's
Jeff.
I wish it didn't say nap. That really, I didn't like the nap sound they made. That was a scary sound. I could have done without the caption on this. You got your last one ready, Rick?
Yeah, those were the
right. Save the chat for more of my Smurf dementia here.
A trope that's been parodied quite a number of times. And it kind of started here with this particular look, Apocalypse Raids, and it's just the red with the black just kind of became an iconic thing in metal.
Oh yeah.
It's just so many bands have kind of just took on that. Although here it's not in all caps. The old English with the all caps, I always found that very annoying and very, very hard on the eyes to try and read. This one here, German band. This is their second album. They kind of pretty much call it quits. The members moved on to Udo as UDO. Bullet. Talk about a generic name. Like you try to look this up, there's like 20 other bands.
Another Smurf. Look, is that Smurfette?
That's why the reason I brought it up is because you kept mentioning the blue. I'm like, is this kind of fitting there? Did they take that same poison? Also, I pulled this up because of the fashion. I mean, look at these guys. I mean, this is something that I don't know why it ever went away. Like, cool album. It kind of treads in that line of they're German, so you got a little bit of that accept-isms in there.
Oh, yeah.
With it's though it does lean on hard rock at times. Another one here, kind of just catching up a little bit of what you guys showed earlier.
Is that true, Promethean? Right? Bullet wrote the Transformers cartoon movie theme song. Is that true?
I thought it was a White Lion? I think that's who they was. I don't. That would be news to me. I didn't know that if it was Bullet. You brought up the regional stuff, the Cascadian and but you know what? What about this? The Boreal Coast. That's a region, and Barney knows this.
Yep, their new album. I did the layout for that one, and the new one, which is about to come out after many years.
It's really good. I
actually
bought this before we even met. I talked and everything. This is a band I was already into, and it's awesome. I don't know why.
Lion is the band that did that.
White Lion or Lion.
It's just Lion. Yep.
Oh, White Lion's the other band. Never mind.
Yeah.
Have metal. Yeah, this is not heavy metal. It's more like sludge metal. But Kevorkian, serial killers, and people, infamous characters who are doing their own art and depictions and stuff. Kevorkian, Acid Bath. and obviously, you know, kite string pops in the previous. That the kind of the use of kind of infamous people for or notorious characters
Yep.
for their artwork. Another one in trope and metal, portrayals of torture. I didn't want anything too gory or anything like that, so I just pulled a classic, spreading the disease. You know, up until I got the vinyl, I didn't realize there was a rip in the middle of his jeans right there, like just in that spot. Like,
Yep.
you don't notice it on the CD, but that's another common trope I see a lot in metal, and just some kind of shock or torture or something along those lines. You know, you're not going to see that in the Taylor Swift cover. And you know what? And for the last one, something that I always see regarding instruments on covers, it's always guitars. You don't usually see drum sets on covers. You know, you usually don't see triangles, you know, cowbells. It's guitars, you know. So I just pulled the stone real quick, and you know, I could have pulled that first metal church. You know, like there's quite a number of these album covers, and you know, or Def Leppard, you know, Out Through the Night. You know, it's just guitars and guitars and guitars. It's portrayed a lot of metal albums, hard rock albums. You know, it's just like a common thing. But guitars always seem to win out. As kind of the instrument, the show on covers. It seems to be the most popular one. So there you go.
All right. There you have it. Rick, interesting topic. One we've never done before, and it was fun. It was different.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we found a path moving forward in it.
you guys do these episodes
Absolutely.
every Friday and always showing these things, and I notice a consistent theme. It's always a lot of the similar kind of things happening, and it's nice to kind of just talk about it and call it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, there's this particular thing. Why do we gravitate towards this? Why do we have Hell Ripper in 2026 still putting goats on their cover? You know, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what have you got coming up? Anything going on? You just put out a video, your first video in some time. You killed a lot of videos on your channel, which is always sad to see happen.
Starting over, just, you know, they weren't getting any views, and it's also another way to make myself just motivate to do something new and different. You know, it's kind of it's I know it's weird.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, I'll probably draw something. Maybe there's an April Fool's coming up. Maybe you'll see something.
sweet.
You know, it'll be serious. I don't know. Maybe not serious. But you can find me tomorrow on Jeff's Staying, so celebrating his 60th birthday. So it should be a fun time.
I should be making an appearance as well. So
Awesome.
thanks for inviting me, Jeff, and it'll be good to wish you a happy birthday. And Alan, what do you got coming up on the Let's Talk Metal channel on Tuesday?
I believe Tuesday is my 300th episode on Let's Talk Metal, and
Very
I'm going to
nice.
be ranking all the albums in the Nile catalog.
Wow, very good.
That's just, it wasn't picked for episode 300. That's just something I had done. That's where it's going to get released. So we're going to do that, and yeah, try to shake off the willies of this whole Smurf thing. And Misanthropy mentioned Watership Down, and oh god, yes, that's like they made us watch that movie twice when I was in elementary school. It wasn't enough to subject it to us once. We had to sit through the bloody thing twice, watching those rabbits get buried alive and suffocating, and their eyes like bulging out of their heads as they couldn't breathe. Oh god. Yeah, Misanthropy. I know what you mean with that one.
Charlotte's Web was a sad one too, and
that was sad, but at least wasn't like graphic sad. I mean,
No.
the whole Watership Down. It wasn't just like, oh no, the bunnies' homes just got bulldozed over. I mean, they're like showing you the bunnies underground getting crushed with their eyes popping and like their mouths open, gasping for air, but just getting filled with dirt. We did some we subjected kids to some weird stuff back then.
Yep.
But yes, I'll be ranking the Nile albums. And yes, Lee Warhammer 666. Lee's been in the chat with Misanthropy. Don't forget to go check them out Sunday nights. They're going to have Aaron the Metal Theologian on as a guest.
Absolutely.
No, that's not this. Was that this Sunday or next Sunday?
It's this Sunday.
It is this Sunday. Yeah, I've been getting my weekends mixed up. So go over and check that out Sunday evening. Always a fun show. Logan was on last week, and they had a really good time hanging out with Logan, tasting beers and such.
Some pretty good sludge from Stoner. Definitely my my bag.
Yep. And as far as show notes goes for us, Wednesday we are doing Logan picked Yob's, I think Atma is the name of it. And Friday Philip returns from chromium dioxide, and we will have a topic. We don't know the topic yet, but it'll be good to see Phil again and talk about the resurrection of chromium dioxide radio, which should be coming soon. And that's it for all of us here at Heavy Metallurgy. Hope you have a Smurfy weekend, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate all of you. Thank you for spending your Fridays with us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
Cheers.
everybody.
Nap.